We all know that sleep is essential for our health and well-being. But did you know that for some, sleep can actually be a spiritual journey? Imagine staying awake all night, not out of necessity, but to connect with the divine. Hindu priests in ancient temples would do just that, meditating and performing rituals into the early hours. In today's video, we'll talk about the unusual night vigils of Hindu priests and how they use sleep deprivation as a tool for spiritual awakening. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. In the stillness of the night, as the world around them rested, Hindu priests in ancient temples remained awake, immersed in sacred ceremonies that would last well into the early hours of the morning. Their commitment to these night vigils wasn't born out of necessity, but out of devotion and a deep understanding of the significance of those quiet hours. The practice of staying awake through the night was more than just a test of endurance. It was believed to be the key to spiritual awakening. In Hindu tradition, the night is considered a time when the veil between the physical world and the spiritual realm grows thinner, making it the ideal time for meditation and prayer. This was the time when the divine energies were most accessible, and the priest's soul, free from the distractions of the waking world, could connect with the divine. The night watch was not just about resisting sleep, but about surrendering to the deeper rhythms of the universe, seeking answers in the stillness and darkness. During these vigils, priests would chant sacred mantras, perform elaborate rituals, and meditate, all in the hope of attaining spiritual clarity and understanding. The practice was a means of transcending the mundane world and connecting with a higher state of being. As the night wore on, the fatigue from staying awake would set in, but it wasn't seen as a hindrance. It was part of the process of spiritual growth. The more one could withstand physical discomfort and continue to focus on the divine, the closer they were believed to come to enlightenment. What was perhaps most profound about these night vigils was the way they altered the priest's perception of time and sleep. In the modern world, sleep is something we desperately crave, often viewing it as a reprieve from the stresses of daily life. But for these priests, sleep was not something to be prioritized. It was a tool to be used sparingly to foster spiritual awareness. Their bodies were trained to function on minimal rest, with the focus on spiritual discipline rather than physical comfort. The absence of sleep, in this case, wasn't a sign of deprivation, but a way to sharpen the mind and soul, creating a connection with the divine that was not limited by earthly needs. This form of spiritual sacrifice went beyond staying awake through the night. It was about the cultivation of inner strength, the ability to resist worldly distractions in favor of spiritual growth. The priest's dedication to the night rituals was not just about the practice itself, but the discipline it required, a discipline that was as much about the body as it was about the soul. The priest, in essence, was engaging in a form of self-purification through both physical endurance and mental focus. The significance of these practices and their connection to sleep deprivation lies in the belief that, by denying the physical body, one could open the doors to greater spiritual insight. In Hinduism, it is often taught that true enlightenment comes not from the comforts of the world, but from mastery over one's physical desires. The night vigils, therefore, were seen as an opportunity to transcend the limitations of the body and to access a deeper understanding of the self and the universe. The night watch also symbolized the deeper understanding that time itself is an illusion, something that the priest could transcend through spiritual discipline. The hours between dusk and dawn became sacred, where the soul could travel beyond the physical confines of sleep and explore realms that were usually beyond reach. As the priests continued with their rituals and meditations, they entered a heightened state of spiritual awareness. The fatigue they experienced was not seen as a weakness, but a necessary part of the journey toward higher consciousness. The practice of staying awake became a spiritual asceticism, where physical discomfort was embraced in pursuit of something far greater than the mere act of rest. This cycle of night vigils, rituals, and meditations led to a deeper exploration of the relationship between sleep and spirituality. The practice of resisting sleep had a profound impact on how the priests viewed both the physical world and the divine. It wasn't simply about denying the body's need for rest. It was about transcending the ordinary and reaching for the extraordinary, making the night a time of divine communion and spiritual clarity. This brings us to the next crucial aspect of these rituals: the impact of sleep deprivation on spiritual awarenesses. Hindu priests believed that by sacrificing sleep, they could open their minds and hearts to the divine, creating a deeper connection with their spiritual practices. The lack of rest was seen not as a hindrance, but as a pathway to greater enlightenment. As the night deepened and the world outside remained silent, the Hindu priest would enter into another layer of their sacred rituals: the midnight meditations. Unlike any other time of day, the hours between midnight and dawn were considered especially auspicious for mental clarity and spiritual connection. These meditative practices, often linked to the cycles of the moon, were believed to align the priest's energy with the cosmic rhythms of the universe. Midnight was a time of stillness, where the chaos of the day was far behind, and the world seemed to pause in quiet anticipation. It was during this sacred period that the priest would engage in deep meditation, attempting to reach the highest levels of spiritual awareness. This was not merely an act of sitting in silence. The meditations were intense, highly focused practices designed to still the mind and spirit, preparing the priest to receive divine knowledge and insight. It was believed that during these quiet hours, the priest's mind was more open to receiving revelations from the gods. The practice itself was a combination of silent contemplation and chanting, with the priest repeating sacred mantras under his breath, synchronizing the rhythm of his breath with the words. The sound vibrations of the mantras, combined with the deep concentration of the mind, were thought to create a channel for spiritual energy. This form of meditation was deeply linked to the priest's ability to transcend the physical body, allowing the soul to detach and travel into realms of higher consciousness. What made the midnight meditation especially powerful was its connection to the lunar calendar. The cycles of the moon were seen as directly influencing spiritual practices, with certain nights offering a stronger connection to the divine. Full moons were believed to be particularly potent, amplifying the energy of meditation and allowing for a deeper connection with higher states of awareness. The priests, with their knowledge of the lunar cycles, would time their meditative practices according to these phases, ensuring they were meditating at the most spiritually auspicious times. The ritual was not only about the mind, but also about the body. It required intense physical discipline to maintain the posture necessary for such a deep state of meditation. Priests would sit for long periods, often without shifting, maintaining a posture that was crucial for both physical comfort and spiritual focus. The posture was not a passive element of the practice. It was a necessary component in achieving the meditative state. The body was trained to stay alert and still, without succumbing to the natural desires of sleep. The physical aspect of these meditations was deeply linked to the priest's ability to maintain awareness. Unlike the modern practice of sitting or lying down to meditate, the priest's meditations required a more active engagement of the body. The meditation posture was typically cross-legged or seated in the lotus position, where the spine was perfectly aligned and the body was held in a position that minimized distraction. This intense discipline helped to focus the mind, allowing the priest to tune out any external or internal disturbances. In addition to the seated meditative practices, some priests would perform dynamic movements during the midnight hours, such as chanting while pacing or performing sacred gestures that would enhance the flow of spiritual energy. These physical actions were not just symbolic. They were thought to release powerful vibrations that could aid in their spiritual journey. This form of physical engagement in meditation showed how deeply intertwined the body was with the priest's spiritual path. As the meditation practice continued, the body's discomforts would slowly fade into the background as the priest's consciousness entered a higher state of awareness. The constant physical focus helped to keep the priest from drifting into sleep, allowing them to remain spiritually alert despite the body's natural inclination toward rest. This was a crucial aspect of the midnight meditation, pushing through the natural urges of the body to achieve spiritual clarity. These long hours of meditation were also intertwined with the priest's understanding of time and energy. Unlike the average person who viewed sleep as an interruption to daily life, the priest saw these hours of meditation as a crucial opportunity to connect with the divine, where sleep could wait. The practice of resisting the pull of sleep and pushing through physical discomfort was seen as a way of mastering both the body and the mind. It wasn't about denying the body's needs. It was about recognizing that the soul's needs were far more important in these sacred hours. The effects of these midnight meditations were far-reaching. It wasn't just the immediate spiritual benefits that priests sought, but also the long-term transformation of their consciousness. Through this practice, they hoped to break free from the cyclical patterns of everyday life, transcending the limitations of the body and connecting with the infinite. In many ways, the midnight meditations represented the heart of Hindu spiritual practice, an ongoing journey of self-mastery, connection to the divine, and the pursuit of enlightenment. From these intense meditative practices, the priest would transition into even more physically demanding practices, such as the rituals of posture and movement that would shape the rest of their spiritual journey. The body, trained through hours of meditation, would remain alert and strong, ready to endure the next phase of spiritual practice. The discipline of maintaining specific postures during spiritual activities is a cornerstone of Hindu priestly practices. These physical positions are not only designed to enhance spiritual focus, but also serve as tools to ward off the natural pull of sleep, enabling the priest to remain spiritually present throughout long hours of meditation and ritual. Central to these practices is the use of postures such as Padmasana, or the lotus pose, which has become synonymous with meditation and spiritual awakening in Hinduism. The Padmasana, with its elegant simplicity, is much more than just a sitting position. It is a physically demanding posture that requires flexibility, balance, and a steady mind. In this pose, the legs are crossed with each foot resting on the opposite thigh. The spine remains erect, and the hands rest in specific mudras, symbolic gestures. This posture is believed to be the ideal position for maintaining both physical comfort and mental focus during long periods of meditation. The alignment of the body in this position is not only meant to enhance concentration, but it also supports the practitioner's energy flow, directing it inward and upward toward the divine. Maintaining such a posture for hours requires immense physical stamina, as the body must remain perfectly still, unyielding to the common distractions of sleep or discomfort. The body's natural inclination to fall into rest is kept at bay, as the posture helps to channel the mind's energy away from the body's physical needs and into spiritual practice. This helps to cultivate a sense of heightened awareness that goes beyond ordinary consciousness, allowing the priest to transcend the limitations of the body and experience a deeper, more profound connection with the divine. The benefits of these postures extend beyond their spiritual impact. The physical discipline required for practices like Padmasana has long-lasting effects on the body's health. For priests, these postures not only aided in spiritual awakening, but also promoted bodily strength and flexibility. Sitting in meditation for extended periods, particularly in positions like Padmasana, helps increase circulation, strengthen the back, and improve posture. The body becomes a vessel of spiritual practice, able to endure the demands of meditation and ritual without succumbing to sleep or fatigue. Interestingly, these postures also affect the body's sleep cycles. Hindu philosophy suggests that the physical body, when placed in such disciplined positions, begins to synchronize with the rhythms of the mind and spirit. In doing so, the priest enters a state of heightened spiritual awareness that transcends the need for typical sleep. The body and mind, now attuned to the higher frequencies of spiritual energy, require less rest to replenish themselves. Instead of relying on sleep as a means of physical rejuvenation, the priest's body is nourished by the energy generated during meditation, allowing them to maintain spiritual vigor even in the face of sleep deprivation. These postures, while seemingly simple, are part of a larger framework of self-discipline that Hindu priests follow in order to maintain their connection with the divine. In many ways, these practices reflect the deep integration of mind, body, and spirit within Hinduism. It is not enough to simply meditate with the mind, The body must also be trained and disciplined in order to achieve the desired spiritual state. The priest's posture during meditation symbolizes the union of physical and spiritual realms, creating a bridge between the earthly body and the higher self. For the priest, this discipline isn't just about sitting still for hours or enduring the discomfort that may come with such postures. It's about overcoming the natural impulses of the body, whether that be sleepiness, restlessness, or physical pain, and focusing entirely on the divine. The challenge is not only in remaining physically still, but in maintaining a constant state of alertness and spiritual awareness. This union of body and mind leads to profound moments of spiritual insight, where the priest feels in direct communion with the divine, unimpeded by the distractions of the world around them. While the Padmasana is the most well-known posture, there are many others that Hindu priests use during different rituals and spiritual practices. Each one serves a unique purpose, with specific benefits for the mind, body, and spirit. Some postures are designed to ground the practitioner, while others are meant to elevate the consciousness, helping the priest achieve an altered state of awareness. The variety of these postures allows the priest to tailor their physical discipline to the specific spiritual goals they are seeking to achieve. These postures are not just a physical requirement, they are a spiritual practice in themselves. The act of maintaining a difficult position for extended periods is an act of willpower and devotion, a physical manifestation of the priest's dedication to their spiritual path. The struggle to remain still, to resist the body's natural desire for rest, is a reflection of the larger struggle within the spiritual journey, overcoming distractions, overcoming the self, and achieving union with the divine. As priests maintain these postures during meditation, they not only focus on their physical stillness, but they also begin to align their mental and emotional states. The postures help quiet the mind, allowing for a deeper sense of peace and connection with the divine. Over time, the body becomes so accustomed to these practices that it no longer resists them, and the mind learns to find clarity even in moments of discomfort. While the postures are essential for the priest's meditative practice, they also shape their daily life in profound ways. The physical discipline required for such practices becomes a way of life priests incorporate these postures into their routines, whether they are performing rituals, offering prayers, or simply meditating in solitude. Through this constant practice, they maintain spiritual vigor, even in the face of physical exhaustion. The ability to stay awake, alert, and connected to the divine, despite sleep deprivation, is a testament to the power of these practices and their impact on the priest's overall spiritual journey. These rigorous practices influence the daily life of a priest in ways that go beyond just their spiritual rituals. The physical discipline required to maintain spiritual practices has a lasting impact on their ability to maintain focus and clarity throughout the day. Whether they are performing temple duties, offering counsel to others, or engaging in personal reflection, the priest's body and mind remain attuned to the divine energies they've worked so hard to cultivate. This connection between physical postures, mental clarity, and spiritual discipline leads naturally to a deeper understanding of how these practices affect the priest's overall way of life. As we move forward, we'll explore how these practices shape their daily routines, enabling them to maintain spiritual vigor even as they navigate the demands of the world around them. As the hours of spiritual practice stretched on, the priests in Hindu temples would eventually find themselves seeking rest. But their sleeping conditions were far from what we would consider comfortable. While modern hotels boast feather pillows and plush mattresses, the sleeping arrangements for Hindu priests in ancient temples were a far cry from such luxuries. In fact, the very discomfort of their sleeping conditions was seen as an essential part of their spiritual journey, a physical sacrifice that symbolized their devotion and renunciation of worldly pleasures. In most temples, priests slept on hard surfaces, thin mats or simple wooden planks, often on the cold stone floors of the temple sanctum. There was no expectation of comfort. The goal was not rest, but endurance. The discomfort served as a reminder of the body's temporary nature and the priest's greater commitment to spiritual pursuits over physical needs. A bed was not a place to unwind, but a place to detach from worldly desires. The physical discomfort was not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced as a form of discipline. By sacrificing the body's need for comfort, the priests symbolically demonstrated their commitment to the divine, placing their spiritual duties above all else. These simple sleeping arrangements were not only about physical discomfort, but were also a reflection of the broader cultural value placed on renunciation in Hinduism. The practice of self-sacrifice and physical hardship was seen as a way to purify the mind and spirit, preparing the priest for deeper spiritual awakening. The less one indulged in the comforts of the physical world, the more one could focus on the divine. The act of sleeping on hard surfaces, devoid of any luxury, was viewed as a form of penance, an offering to the gods that the priest was willing to endure hardship for the sake of spiritual growth. In addition to the physical discomfort, the priests often had very little privacy in the temple. They slept in communal spaces, alongside other priests, in close quarters. Personal space was a luxury that few could afford, and the idea of sleeping alone or in solitude was considered an unnecessary indulgence. The communal nature of their sleeping arrangements reinforced the sense of spiritual unity among the priests, as they shared not just their rituals, but also their living conditions. The physical proximity of the priests symbolized their collective commitment to the divine, creating a bond of shared sacrifice and discipline. There was also a practical side to these humble sleeping arrangements. The temple was a place of constant activity. Rituals, prayers, and offerings were performed around the clock. The priests were on duty throughout the day and night, and their physical comfort was not the priority. The need for constant vigilance in their spiritual duties meant that there was little time for rest. Sleep was seen as a necessary, albeit secondary, activity that allowed the body to recharge for the next round of rituals. The harder and less restful the sleep, the more the body remained attuned to the spiritual needs of the temple. The lack of comfort in the sleeping arrangements also reflected the priest's renunciation of worldly desires. In Hinduism, the practice of asceticism, abstaining from worldly pleasures, is central to spiritual progress. Priests, through their austere living conditions, embodied this principle. By foregoing the comforts of a soft bed, they symbolized their detachment from materialism and their focus on achieving higher states of consciousness. This approach to sleep, with its emphasis on discomfort and sacrifice, was not unique to Hinduism. Similar practices can be found in other spiritual traditions, where ascetics would choose to sleep on hard surfaces or remain in uncomfortable positions as a means of purifying the body and mind. The discomfort of temple sleep, like other ascetic practices, was not intended to harm the body, but to refine it. The idea was that by enduring physical discomfort, the priest could strengthen their spiritual resolve and cultivate a deeper connection to the divine. The sacrifice of comfort, however, was not seen as a form of punishment. Instead, it was regarded as a necessary step in the path to spiritual enlightenment. It was through this renunciation of worldly pleasures that the priest could cultivate the mental clarity and spiritual fortitude needed to perform their duties with the utmost devotion and purity. The discomfort of their sleep was simply a physical manifestation of their dedication to the divine, a way of ensuring that their mind and spirit remained undistracted by earthly needs. As we look deeper into the role of discomfort in Hindu priestly life, we can begin to understand how the practice of sleep deprivation and physical sacrifice was not just about enduring hardship for hardship's sake. It was a means of spiritual purification, a way of aligning the body with the higher spiritual truths that the priest sought to embody. The discomfort of temple sleep leads us naturally into the next chapter, where we will explore the cultural importance of sleep deprivation and the broader spiritual sacrifice that these priests undertook in their pursuit of enlightenment. The practice of sleep deprivation was not merely about staying awake, but about achieving something deeper, a heightened state of spiritual awareness. Hindu priests believed that by sacrificing the body's need for rest, they could connect more profoundly with divine energies. Rather than viewing sleep as a necessary break for the body, it was seen as a hindrance to spiritual clarity. Through the discipline of staying awake, They were able to transcend physical desires and focus their energy on spiritual growth. The longer the priest remained awake, the more open they were to the subtle influences of the divine. In these moments of sleeplessness, the priests believed they were able to clear their minds of worldly distractions. The fatigue they experienced was seen not as weakness, but as a way to break through the veil that separated them from the spiritual realms. They knew that through their voluntary sacrifice, they could attune themselves to a higher frequency, one that allowed them to receive divine insight and experience a deeper connection to the universe. This practice was aligned with the ancient Hindu belief that asceticism, self-denial in the service of spiritual enlightenment, was a key part of the path toward liberation. Sleep deprivation was one of the ways in which a priest could demonstrate their devotion, showing that they were willing to forsake physical comforts in order to achieve higher spiritual goals. In Hinduism, it was believed that the less one indulged in the pleasures of the physical world, the more one could focus on the divine. By sacrificing the body's most basic need for rest, the priest could tap into divine wisdom and strength that was otherwise hidden from the ordinary world. While sleep deprivation was viewed as a form of spiritual discipline, it was not done in isolation. The shared experience of sleeplessness within the temple, the collective practice of long vigils, created a bond among the priests. Their sacrifices, combined with the energy they poured into their rituals, formed a spiritual connection not only with the divine but also with each other. This communal bond was an essential part of temple life, where every priest contributed to the sacred atmosphere that surrounded their spiritual practices. However, the sacrifice of sleep wasn't just a means of spiritual endurance. It was also deeply connected to the priest's understanding of the divine. The fatigue they experienced allowed them to confront their own human limitations, pushing them beyond the physical realm and into a space where divine clarity could shine through. Their exhaustion, rather than hindering their practice, became a gateway to heightened consciousness, allowing them to experience moments of deep spiritual insight. As priests continued to deny their bodies rest, they would often begin to experience dreams or visions, powerful spiritual experiences that they believed were messages from the gods. These dreams were not random or meaningless. They were sacred encounters, glimpses into divine truths. The deeper the state of sleep deprivation, the more intense these visions became. The dreams priests experienced were seen as significant guides, giving them insight into the future or offering revelations about their spiritual path. Sleep deprivation, then, had a dual purpose. It kept the body from falling into the natural rhythm of rest, creating a space where the mind could expand beyond the limits of the physical world. But it also opened the door to visions, dreams, and spiritual experiences that were believed to be directly communicated by the divine. This practice of going without sleep, in pursuit of clarity and spiritual vision, naturally leads us into the next chapter, where we will explore the profound role that dreams played in Hindu spiritual practices. These dreams, often viewed as messages from the gods, were considered essential in guiding the path of the priest, offering divine direction and insight into the mysteries of existence. The importance of dreams in Hindu spiritual practices cannot be overstated. While the physical world offered its distractions, the realm of dreams was seen as a direct conduit to the divine. Dreams were not viewed simply as random neurological events or as the brain's attempt to process the day's information. They were messages, omens, and insights granted by the gods themselves. In the world of Hinduism, sleep was not just a time for rest, but a time for divine revelation. Priests, deeply attuned to spiritual matters, often regarded their dreams as sacred and significant, believing that through these visions they could receive guidance, insight, and even warnings about future events. Priests would carefully document their dreams, especially if they were particularly vivid or strange, and turn to them for guidance in both their spiritual and worldly affairs. Dreams were seen as a form of divine communication, a way for the gods to speak directly to the priest's soul. There were specific dreams believed to indicate auspicious times for conducting rituals, while others might reveal impending challenges or dangers that required the priest's attention. Whether it was a dream of a particular deity, a sacred animal, or a cosmic symbol, the dream was carefully analyzed and interpreted as a sign of divine will. This belief in the divine nature of dreams extended beyond personal experiences. In the temples, the collective dreams of priests were also seen as meaningful, and the interpretation of these dreams could often inform the temple's spiritual direction. Priests might come together to discuss their dreams and share insights, using the interpretations to guide their rituals and duties. This shared spiritual practice made dreams not just a personal experience, but a communal one, reflecting the interconnectedness of the priesthood and the temple's spiritual health. In Hinduism, the idea of dreams as divine messages links deeply with the larger philosophy of the cosmos and the soul. The belief that the physical world was only one part of the greater universe meant that the dream world was just as real, if not more real, than waking life. In some traditions, it was believed that the soul left the body during sleep to travel through other realms, experiencing events that were hidden from the waking mind. Dreams, therefore, were seen as a bridge between the material world and the divine, allowing the priest to access realms of wisdom and insight that were otherwise inaccessible in the waking state. The practice of interpreting dreams was often taught to young priests by their mentors, passing down ancient techniques for analyzing the symbols and patterns within dreams. Certain symbols, such as a vision of a serpent or the appearance of a specific deity, held particular significance. Priests would consult sacred texts and teachings, comparing their dreams with the descriptions in these texts to find deeper meanings. In some cases, if a khas dream was particularly puzzling or difficult to understand, a priest might seek the counsel of an elder or guru to help interpret it. While many dreams were seen as personal messages, some were regarded as universal signs that could affect the community as a whole. For example, a dream involving a natural disaster, such as a flood or fire, might be seen as an omen of impending catastrophe. Such dreams were taken very seriously, and rituals or prayers would be performed to prevent the negative outcomes predicted in the dreams. Other times, dreams could offer profound spiritual guidance, indicating the priest's readiness for a higher level of understanding or revealing a new path to spiritual fulfillment. For priests, dreams were not only a personal spiritual experience, but a tool for guiding their practices and actions. The interpretation of dreams allowed them to tap into the divine wisdom that flowed through the universe, providing clarity on their spiritual journey and a roadmap for the community they served. The ability to interpret dreams was thus an essential skill, one that allowed the priest to maintain their connection to the divine and offer meaningful guidance to others. The sacred nature of dreams was not limited to the priests alone. In broader Hindu tradition, dreams held a significant place in the lives of everyday people as well. Many Hindus believe that their dreams can be messages from the gods, warning them of future challenges or revealing deeper truths about their lives. Temples, as spiritual centers, often became places where people sought guidance on their dreams, consulting with priests who were trained in dream interpretation. The act of sharing and interpreting dreams was not seen as a trivial matter, but as a serious spiritual practice, one that connected the individual to the divine and helped guide them along their path. The sacredness of dreams in Hinduism naturally connects to the practice of meditation, which was often used to deepen the understanding of dreams and their meanings. Through meditation, the priest could enter a state of heightened awareness, allowing them to more clearly understand the symbols and messages within their dreams. Meditation was a tool that helped quiet the mind, making it more receptive to the subtle messages that came during sleep. It was believed that, by meditating on the symbols in their dreams, the priest could gain deeper insights into their spiritual path, unravel the mysteries of their soul, and understand their relationship with the divine on a more profound level. As we move forward, we will explore how these meditative practices were not only used for interpreting dreams, but also to actively seek answers in sleep. The next chapter will delve into the specific rituals performed by priests during meditation, particularly those used to invoke divine guidance through sleep, where the boundary between dream and reality became even more fluid. As the priests prepared to rest, The physical exhaustion from their long hours of spiritual work, meditation, and ritual would begin to take its toll. But for Hindu priests, sleep was never a simple retreat from the day. It was a sacred time, a continuation of their spiritual practices. In anticipation of sleep, priests would often perform rituals designed to ensure that their rest would be peaceful and uninterrupted. These rituals were deeply ingrained in their daily lives, seen not only as a way to calm the body, but also as an act of devotion, acknowledging that the divine had a role in even the most mundane aspects of life, including sleep. One of the key elements in these pre-sleep rituals was prayer. Hindu priests would often recite mantras and prayers, invoking the protection and blessings of the gods, such as Vishnu, Shiva, or Lakshmi, to ensure that their sleep would be free of disturbance. These prayers were not just words spoken into the air. They were believed to have a powerful vibrational energy that resonated with the spiritual realms. The repetition of these sacred words was meant to calm the mind, protect the soul, and prepare the body for restful sleep. The priests would focus their thoughts on the divine while repeating their mantras, visualizing the gods surrounding them, offering their protection through the night. In addition to prayers, offerings were another important part of these rituals. A priest might make offerings of incense, flowers, or fruit before lying down to sleep. These offerings symbolized gratitude to the divine and invited the gods to remain close during the night. The act of offering, even in the quiet of the evening, was a way to honor the divine presence that was believed to permeate all aspects of life, including sleep. It was through these small, deliberate acts of devotion that the priests sought to align their entire being with the divine energy, creating a space where peace and tranquility could reign during their rest. The preparations for sleep were not only about invoking divine protection, but also about maintaining spiritual cleanliness. Rituals of purification were often performed before sleep, where priests would bathe or cleanse their bodies with sacred waters. This physical cleansing was seen as essential for the mind to remain pure, ensuring that no negative energies would interfere with the peaceful sleep that followed. By purifying themselves, the priest would remove any spiritual impurities, making themselves more receptive to divine energy while they slept. The rituals also reflected a deeper philosophical understanding of sleep in Hinduism. Sleep was not just an escape from the waking world. It was an opportunity for the soul to detach from the body and reconnect with the divine. Therefore, the preparation for sleep was seen as a continuation of the priest's spiritual journey. As they performed these rituals, they were not simply winding down from the day, they were reaffirming their connection to the sacred, ensuring that their sleep would allow them to receive spiritual guidance and renewal. This focus on peaceful sleep was tied to the Hindu belief in the cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction, where the restful period of sleep mirrored the cosmic cycle. Just as the universe goes through phases of creation, preservation, and destruction, the priest's own cycle of wakefulness and sleep reflected this divine process. By preparing for sleep with such rituals, the priest was acknowledging their place within this eternal rhythm, allowing their mind and soul to rest while still being held in the protective embrace of the divine forces. At the same time, these rituals ensured that the priest's sleep would not be interrupted by malevolent spirits or negative energies. In Hinduism, it is believed that sleep is a vulnerable state, where the body and soul are more susceptible to external influences. By invoking the protection of the gods and performing sacred rituals, the priests believed they could ward off any harmful spirits or disturbing dreams that might arise. This was not just a superstition, but a deeply held belief that sleep, as a sacred experience, required the presence of the divine to be fully realized. The practice of preparing for sleep through these rituals also tied into the broader Hindu understanding of the body and mind as vessels for spiritual energy. Rest, while essential for physical rejuvenation, was also seen as a time for the soul to renew itself. The priest would enter into a state of spiritual renewal as they rested, ensuring that their sleep would be uninterrupted and free from distractions. allowing their mind to remain attuned to the divine while their body replenished itself for the next day's rituals. As the priest lay down to sleep, the final act of the evening would often be to offer a last prayer of gratitude, acknowledging the day's work and seeking divine blessing for the peaceful rest ahead. This final prayer, uttered quietly into the night, would be the priest's last connection to the waking world before they drifted into a sleep filled with the divine protection and blessings of the gods. From these practices of peaceful sleep preparation, the focus shifts to the supernatural and divine entities that played an integral role in influencing the priest's rest. Hindu beliefs surrounding sleep are steeped in the understanding that divine forces govern all aspects of life, even the seemingly passive state of rest. In the next chapter, we'll explore the supernatural forces, gods, spirits, and cosmic energies that influence sleep, highlighting the sacredness of this practice and how the divine, even in sleep, is always present. In the vast and intricate tapestry of Hindu belief, sleep is not merely a biological necessity, but a sacred state intertwined with divine presence and cosmic rhythms. The Hindu pantheon includes gods who are directly associated with sleep, rest, and rejuvenation, each playing a vital role in the cycles of wakefulness and slumber. These deities are not distant figures. Rather, they are intimately involved in the priest's daily life, ensuring that sleep is a time for spiritual renewal, protection, and divine communion. One of the most significant gods associated with sleep is Vishnu, the preserver of the universe. Vishnu's role is not only to maintain cosmic order, but also to sustain the world during its periods of rest. According to Hindu mythology, Vishnu is often depicted as reclining on the cosmic serpent Ananta, floating peacefully in the ocean of creation, symbolizing the eternal rest from which the universe is periodically renewed. This state of repose, or yoga nidra, yogic sleep, is a cosmic counterpart to the daily sleep of humans. Vishnu's rest is not idle but a form of divine preservation, a state in which the energy of the universe is conserved, ready to be awakened when the time is right. Priests, who embody the principles of preservation and balance in their own lives, draw from this divine imagery during their nightly rituals, seeking the rejuvenating energy of Vishnu to restore both body and spirit. Alongside Vishnu, Brahma, the creator god, is also linked to the cycles of sleep. Brahma's role in creation is intimately connected to the act of awakening. In many texts, Brahma is described as sleeping between the cycles of creation and destruction, and his sleep marks the periods of cosmic dissolution. When Brahma awakes, creation begins anew, and the universe is reborn. The act of sleep, in this sense, is a crucial phase in the ongoing process of cosmic rebirth. For the priest, this divine cycle mirrors their own daily rhythm of spiritual work and rest. In their rituals, they honor Brahma's sleep as a moment of renewal, a sacred time when the universe rests and prepares for the next cycle of spiritual and material creation. Moreover, Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation, also plays a role in the realm of sleep. Known as the destroyer, Shiva's energy is linked to the dissolution of the old to make way for the new. In his peaceful form, Shiva is often depicted in deep meditation or sleep, embodying the tranquility and stillness needed to bring about transformation. His restful state symbolizes the pause between destruction and creation, a necessary stillness before the next phase of action. In this way, Shiva's sleep is both a time of rest and a space for spiritual purification, a moment of silence before the next wave of spiritual transformation. The gods associated with sleep and rest, then, are not passive or inactive figures. Rather, they are deeply involved in the cycles of creation, preservation, and transformation. Their sleep is a cosmic process, mirroring the priest's own rhythms of wakefulness and rest. For the priest, the connection to these deities provides both spiritual guidance and protection during their own sleep. By invoking these gods in their rituals, the priest seeks to align their own rest with the divine forces that govern the universe, ensuring that their sleep becomes a time for spiritual renewal and divine communion. This sacred connection between the gods and sleep extends into the daily practices of Hindu priests. The rituals they perform to prepare for sleep are not just acts of physical relaxation, but of spiritual alignment with the divine. By calling upon Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, the priest acknowledges their place in the greater cosmic cycle, recognizing that sleep, like creation itself, is sacred and imbued with divine purpose. But beyond these divine associations with sleep, there is also a strong focus on the physical well-being of the priests, which is vital for maintaining their spiritual practices. Hinduism places great emphasis on the health of the body, seeing it as the vessel through which the divine can manifest. As such, the physical discipline of the priest was just as important as their spiritual training, and it was essential for them to maintain their health in order to perform their duties effectively. Priests, therefore, did not just prepare for sleep through rituals to invoke divine protection, they also engaged in practices that supported their physical health and vitality. Maintaining the body's strength and balance was crucial to their ability to carry out the demanding spiritual work required in the temple. These practices, designed to keep the priest's body in peak condition, included dietary restrictions, specific physical exercises, and an adherence to a balanced lifestyle that supported both physical and spiritual endurance. By strengthening their bodies, priests could better serve the divine and remain alert and focused during their spiritual practices, even in the face of sleep deprivation. As we move forward, the focus shifts to how these practices of physical wellness were deeply interconnected with the priest's spiritual duties. The next chapter will delve into the ways in which priests prepared their bodies for the rigors of their spiritual work, including how they aligned their physical health with their spiritual goals. The physical discipline of the priest, just like their meditative practices, became an essential part of their path toward divine communion and enlightenment. In Hinduism, the harmony between the body, mind, and soul is considered essential for achieving spiritual enlightenment. Priests, in particular, dedicated themselves to maintaining this delicate balance, knowing that their physical health directly influenced their spiritual discipline. Unlike modern perspectives that often separate physical well-being from spiritual growth, Hindu teachings emphasize the inseparable connection between the two. For the priest, achieving balanced health was not merely about staying physically fit. It was about cultivating an environment within the body that allowed the soul to flourish. One of the most fundamental ways in which priests achieved this balance was through careful attention to diet. In Hinduism, food is seen not just as fuel, but as a powerful force that can influence the mind and spirit. The concept of sattvic food, pure, light, and nourishing, was central to a priest's diet. These foods were chosen for their ability to support both the body's health and the mind's clarity. Sattvic foods, such as fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, were believed to promote purity and balance, giving the body the energy it needed without overburdening it. Meat, alcohol, and other stimulating substances were typically avoided, as they were thought to cloud the mind and disrupt the spiritual equilibrium. In addition to a carefully curated diet, the priest's physical health was also maintained through regular exercise and physical practices. Yoga, in its many forms, was an essential part of a priest's routine, helping them build strength, flexibility, and stamina, while also calming the mind. The postures, asanas, practiced in yoga not only kept the body in peak condition, but also facilitated the flow of spiritual energy, or prana, throughout the body. The control of breath, another central aspect of yoga, was also crucial. Pranayama, or breath control, helped the priest to remain calm and centered, even in the face of spiritual or physical challenges. Through these practices, the body was both strengthened and refined, becoming a vessel capable of carrying the soul on its spiritual journey. The alignment of the body and mind also extended to the patterns of rest and sleep. Priests recognized the importance of sleep, not as an indulgence, but as a necessary time for rejuvenation. However, this did not mean that sleep was treated in the same way it is often viewed in modern culture, as a time for pure relaxation or escape. Sleep, for the priest, was a sacred practice, one that was carefully managed to ensure that it supported their spiritual disciplines rather than hindered them. As we have seen in earlier chapters, many priests would prepare for sleep with rituals designed to ensure peace and spiritual clarity. These rituals helped to guide them into a restful state where the mind and body could replenish without being disturbed by the distractions of the world. This focus on sleep as a sacred act didn't mean that priests ignored the importance of wakefulness. In fact, they maintained highly structured daily schedules designed to align their waking hours with the natural rhythms of the body. They would rise early, often before dawn, to begin their daily rituals and meditations. Early rising, known as Brahma Muhurta, was considered the most auspicious time for spiritual practice, as it was believed that the world was still at rest and the divine energies were most potent. Waking up early allowed the priest to maximize their energy levels, ensuring that they could engage in their spiritual duties with full attention and clarity. Throughout the day, the priest's activities were guided by a sense of balance. Physical tasks, like performing temple duties, were balanced with spiritual practices, such as meditation, prayer, and the study of sacred texts. By maintaining this balance, the priest could avoid the depletion of energy that might arise from overworking the body or the mind. They understood that spiritual discipline was not about pushing themselves to the limit, but about finding a rhythm that allowed them to remain consistently connected to the divine, while also tending to their physical needs. The integration of body, mind, and soul in this way allowed the priest to maintain high levels of spiritual discipline without succumbing to burnout or exhaustion. In contrast to a world that often encourages overwork and neglect of the body, the Hindu priest maintained a lifestyle that was deeply attuned to both physical and spiritual needs. Rest, exercise, and diet were not seen as separate from spiritual practice. They were woven into the very fabric of the priest's daily life, creating a holistic approach to health and well-being. This balance, however, did not mean that the priest was free from the challenges of spiritual life. The constant demands of ritual and meditation, combined with the physical discipline required to maintain such a lifestyle, could be taxing. But the priest's ability to manage their health through a balanced diet, regular exercise, and careful attention to sleep allowed them to maintain the necessary vigor to continue their spiritual practices. By respecting the body and its needs, the priest could deepen their spiritual connection and continue to serve the divine with clarity and devotion. This balance of health and sleep naturally leads to the next chapter, where the focus shifts to the relationship between spiritual energy and the cycles of sleep and wakefulness. The priest's ability to maintain physical health was essential for their spiritual discipline, but it was also vital for managing the flow of energy through their body. In the next chapter, we will explore how these practices, including the balance between sleep and wakefulness, enabled priests to stay spiritually connected and alert, even in the midst of physical exhaustion. Before settling down to sleep, Hindu priests would engage in a series of purification rituals designed to cleanse not just their bodies, but their minds and spirits as well. Sleep, seen as a sacred time for spiritual renewal, required that the priest rid themselves of any negative energies or impurities that may have accumulated throughout the day. These rituals, while deeply personal, were essential for ensuring that the priest entered their rest in a state of purity, ready to receive divine guidance and rejuvenation during sleep. One of the most common purification practices involved bathing, often in sacred rivers or water bodies. In Hinduism, water is seen as a purifying element, capable of washing away physical and spiritual impurities. Priests would often bathe in rivers like the Ganges, regarded as the most sacred of all rivers, believing that the water would cleanse them of negative influences and prepare them for the night ahead. These baths were not merely about physical cleanliness, but a ritual act of spiritual purification, in which the priest immersed themselves in the divine flow of the river, letting the sacred waters wash over their body and soul. The act of bathing in these holy waters symbolized a release from the worldly distractions of the day, a purification of the self, and a deepening of their connection to the divine. In addition to these sacred baths, priests would often use specific oils, herbs, and incenses to further purify themselves. Fragrant oils such as sandalwood or sesame were rubbed onto the body, not just for their calming and therapeutic properties, but as a symbolic gesture of self-care and devotion. The application of these oils was an act of reverence, allowing the priest to prepare themselves both physically and spiritually for the night. The scent of the oils would also help to create a serene atmosphere, calming the mind and preparing the body for rest. Herbal remedies were also part of this purification process. In some traditions, priests would anoint themselves with herbal mixtures believed to clear negative energies, such as tulsi, holy basil, or turmeric, both regarded as sacred plants in Hinduism. The use of these herbs was seen as a way to maintain spiritual cleanliness, allowing the priest to ward off any harmful or imbalanced energies that might interfere with their connection to the divine during sleep. These practices were often done at twilight, before the priest would retire for the night, creating a calm, reverent atmosphere that allowed them to transition from the waking world into the sacred realm of sleep. The significance of these rituals goes beyond their practical effects. In Hinduism, the body is viewed as a temple, and purification is seen as essential for maintaining the integrity of the soul. Just as a temple must be kept clean and pure for the divine presence to reside within, so too must the priest's body be purified before they can rest. This idea of purification before sleep reflects the broader Hindu understanding that sleep is not simply a time to rest the body, but a spiritual act that requires a state of purity and readiness. The purification rituals were seen as essential in ensuring that the priest's body and soul were aligned with divine energy, allowing them to enter into a peaceful and spiritually rejuvenating rest. These practices of personal purification also had a psychological effect, creating a sense of separation between the demands and stresses of the day and the tranquil state of rest. They allowed the priest to leave behind the burdens of worldly life, entering sleep with a clean slate, so to speak. The act of purifying oneself through water, herbs and oils was a meditative ritual in itself, offering the priest a moment of calm and introspection before the day's end. It was a time to let go of any negative thoughts, emotions, or distractions and prepare to be spiritually refreshed in the coming hours of sleep. Beyond these personal purification rituals, the priest also engaged in practices that affected the spiritual energy of the temple and community as a whole. Purification was not just an individual task, but a communal one, as the energy of the entire temple was seen as interconnected. Priests would often perform rituals for the temple's well-being, ensuring that the sacred space was free from any negative influences. The rituals that took place before sleep, though personal in nature, were an essential part of maintaining the collective spiritual health of the community. The collective energy of the temple played an important role in the quality of rest and spiritual rejuvenation, not just for the priests but for all who visited. This understanding of collective purification ties into the next chapter, where we will explore how the spiritual practices of the priesthood extended beyond the individual, affecting the temple and the community. The shared energy created through communal rituals helped to maintain the temple's sacred atmosphere, allowing all who participated to benefit from the purification that was performed both in the temple and in the priest's personal lives. By focusing on personal purification, the priest ensured that they could enter their rest with a mind and body prepared to receive divine energies. This ritual cleansing allowed the priest to sleep not only peacefully, but in alignment with the divine order. The next chapter will explore how these practices of purification and spiritual discipline extended to the collective, ensuring that the entire community was spiritually aligned and protected. In Hindu communities, the practice of purification and spiritual alignment before sleep was not just an individual affair, but a collective responsibility. While priests performed their personal rituals to prepare for restful sleep, the community as a whole would often gather for prayers and rituals that were designed to ensure the well-being of everyone. These communal practices, deeply embedded in the spiritual fabric of Hindu life, were seen as a way to protect individuals from negative influences and ensure a peaceful, uninterrupted rest. The belief was that when the community came together in shared devotion, their collective energy created a protective barrier, shielding them from nightmares, ill-willed spirits, and disturbances during sleep. One of the central elements of these communal rituals was the recitation of sacred prayers and mantras, often performed as a group before the entire village or temple prepared for the night. These prayers, directed to gods like Vishnu or Shiva, were designed to bring peace and protection to the community. The belief was that the energy created by the collective chant would resonate throughout the space, purifying the area and ensuring that the forces of darkness and negativity could not enter. For many Hindus, the evening prayer session became a sacred time to come together as one, to focus their collective intentions on spiritual peace, and to offer gratitude for the day's blessings. These rituals also had a strong sense of community bonding, as they were an opportunity for individuals to share in a common spiritual practice. Whether in the temple or in village homes, families would gather to offer their prayers, invoking divine protection for the night ahead. The act of coming together in this way served not just as a protective measure, but as a reminder of the interconnectedness of all individuals within the community. The unity achieved through shared ritual was seen as an essential component of maintaining the spiritual health of the community as well as the physical well-being of its members. The collective nature of these rituals went beyond merely offering prayers for a peaceful sleep. There were also practices that involved blessings, where the elder members of the community would bless the younger ones, wishing them restful sleep and protection from any ill influences. These blessings, which were often accompanied by the symbolic placing of hands on the heads of the young or the sick, helped to transmit positive energy and spiritual strength to those who needed it most. This practice further cemented the belief that sleep was not a solitary activity, but something that was shared, that it was something everyone participated in as part of the larger spiritual journey. Hinduism's approach to communal rituals around sleep also incorporated the use of sound, which played an important role in ensuring that the community's spiritual energy remained focused on peaceful rest. Bells, conch curtain, shells, and other sacred instruments were used in temples or homes, creating a resonant sound that helped drive away negative energies. The sound would fill the space, enveloping everyone present in a sense of divine presence, marking the transition from the active day to the peaceful night. These sounds were not just pleasant, they were considered sacred vibrations that invited divine protection and sleep. By coming together to engage in these communal rituals, Hindu communities ensured that each person's sleep was protected and spiritually aligned. Whether through prayers, blessings, or the use of sacred sounds, these practices strengthened the bonds between individuals and the divine. The collective energy created through these rituals was believed to reinforce the connection between the community and the gods, ensuring that no individual would face the night alone or unprotected. The communal aspect of these practices not only reinforced the importance of unity, but also helped to maintain balance within the community. The harmony achieved through collective rituals was believed to create a spiritual shield around the community, preventing disturbances and promoting positive energies. The shared devotion during these rituals was an essential part of maintaining peace within the community, ensuring that everyone's sleep would be peaceful and uninterrupted. From these communal practices, the focus shifts to the more personal side of sleep in Hindu spiritual life. While the collective energy of the community played a significant role in ensuring peaceful sleep, the priest's own journey towards spiritual growth was closely linked to how they viewed sleep as a personal experience. In the next chapter, we will explore how sleep, while a communal practice, was also deeply personal, seen as a time for self-reflection, spiritual growth, and connection with the divine on an individual level. While the communal rituals offered protection and spiritual connection for the larger community, Hindu priests also recognized the profound value of solitude in their spiritual journey. In certain moments, the priest would retreat from the world, seeking quiet, isolated spaces to engage in deep sleep, meditation, and self-reflection. This solitary practice was not merely about physical rest, but about creating a sacred environment where the individual could transcend external distractions and focus entirely on their connection with the divine. It was during these moments of solitude that the priest could reflect on their spiritual path, seek enlightenment, and deepen their understanding of the divine forces that govern the universe. Solitary sleep practices were deeply embedded in the Hindu tradition of asceticism, where the body's needs were minimized in favor of spiritual growth. The priest, by choosing to sleep in isolation, separated themselves from the noise and chaos of the world, allowing them to enter a state of pure receptivity. It was believed that, in solitude, the priest could more easily hear the subtle guidance of the gods and receive spiritual revelations that would be impossible to attain in the bustling environment of the temple or community. These solitary retreats were often conducted in small huts or isolated temples, away from the distractions of the outside world. The simplicity of the surroundings was purposeful. There were no luxuries to distract the mind, no comforts to induce laziness or complacency. The environment was stripped down to the essentials, designed to foster a sense of detachment from worldly concerns. The priest, isolated in this quiet space, would meditate for hours or even days, using the time to refine their spiritual practice, deepen their connection to the divine, and achieve a higher state of awareness. In these solitary spaces, the priest would often enter states of deep meditation, sometimes remaining in complete stillness for hours on end. This stillness was not just physical, it was mental and emotional as well. By retreating into solitude, the priest removed the distractions of the mind, allowing their thoughts to quiet and their connection to the divine to become clearer. In this deep state of reflection, the priest could access higher levels of consciousness, transcending the limitations of the body and mind. This was seen as a crucial aspect of their spiritual development, as it was believed that true enlightenment could only come when the priest fully detached from worldly concerns and connected with the divine on a deeper level. Solitary sleep practices were also linked to the Hindu understanding of self-realization, the realization that one's true nature is not bound by the body, but is part of the divine essence that permeates all things. By spending time alone, free from the influence of others, the priest could come to a deeper understanding of their true self and their relationship to the cosmos. This self-reflection was not simply about intellectual knowledge, but about experiencing the divine presence within, directly and intimately. It was believed that through these solitary moments of introspection, the priest could achieve a profound spiritual awakening that would guide their actions and deepen their wisdom. Additionally, solitude was seen as a way for the priest to work through their personal challenges and karmic burdens. In Hindu thought, every soul carries with it the residue of past actions, karma, that must be resolved through spiritual practices, meditation, and ascended self-reflection. Time spent in solitude allowed the priest to face their own internal struggles, confront negative emotions, and work toward purifying their soul. It was believed that in the quiet of solitude, the soul could process past experiences and gain the clarity needed to move forward on the spiritual path. The practice of solitary sleep, however, was not simply about personal enlightenment. It was believed that by achieving spiritual clarity and awakening during these solitary periods, the priest could serve their community more effectively. When the priest emerged from their solitude, they were seen as spiritually renewed and more capable of offering guidance and protection to the people. Their personal journey toward enlightenment allowed them to become clearer channels for divine energy, offering wisdom, healing, and support to those in need. In Hinduism, the balance between solitude and community was crucial. While solitude allowed the priest to cultivate personal enlightenment, the community served as a place for spiritual practice and shared rituals. The next chapter will explore how the priest's individual journey in solitude was balanced by their participation in group dynamics, particularly during nightly rituals. These rituals, performed as a collective, helped the priest and the community alike achieve spiritual awakening, creating a harmonious flow of energy between the individual and the group. Just as solitary practices allowed for personal growth, the collective energy of group rituals amplified the spiritual potential of each participant, bringing them closer to the divine and to one another. Before the priests retired for sleep, there was a final act of communal devotion, group meditation. This collective practice was designed to unify the minds and spirits of all the participants, aligning them in a shared spiritual intention before the night's rest. The power of group meditation lay not only in its ability to bring individuals together in a common purpose, but in its capacity to generate a collective energy that transcended the limitations of any one individual. In this space of unity, the priest could enter into a state of deep meditation, focusing their energy toward the divine and preparing themselves for the sacred experience of sleep. The meditation itself was a carefully structured practice, rooted in the ancient traditions of Hindu spiritual philosophy. The priests would gather in a quiet, sacred space, often within the temple or a specially designated area, where they would sit together in a circle. The stillness of the space, combined with the collective focus of the group, created an atmosphere that was conducive to deep spiritual work. The goal of this meditation was not only to calm the mind and prepare the body for rest, but to align the spiritual energy of each participant, creating a unified field of devotion and intention. The types of meditation practiced before sleep varied, but they were always centered on devotion to the divine. One common form involved the chanting of mantras, sacred syllables or phrases that were repeated to focus the mind and invoke divine presence. These mantras were often specific to the gods worshipped by the temple or the community, with particular sounds and vibrations believed to resonate with the divine energies associated with those deities. As the group chanted together, the vibration of the sound filled the space, creating a shared rhythm that bound the participants' consciousness to the divine. Another form of meditation involved visualizing the presence of a deity, such as Vishnu or Shiva, and focusing on their divine attributes. In these meditations, the priest would imagine the deity descending upon them, filling their minds and hearts with divine light. This process of visualization was meant to foster a sense of connection with the divine, allowing the priest to feel that they were in the very presence of the God. The collective energy of the group amplified the experience, creating a shared vision of divine presence that was more powerful than any individual meditation. The synchronization of breath was another important aspect of these group meditations. The priests would focus on their breath, breathing in unison as they moved through their practice. This synchronization helped to align their physical and spiritual energies, creating a shared flow that deepened the meditation. As the group inhaled and exhaled together, they cultivated a sense of unity, not only with each other, but with the divine presence that they were invoking. The rhythmic breathing served to quiet the mind, preparing the body for rest and allowing the priests to enter into a state of calm and clarity that would carry them into sleep. Through this collective meditation, the priests were able to create an energetic field that influenced their individual states of consciousness. The energy generated by the group helped to lift the consciousness of each participant, elevating them to a higher spiritual state that was conducive to peaceful sleep. The shared energy of the group allowed each priest to enter into rest with a sense of calm and spiritual fulfillment, knowing that they were connected not only to the divine, but to their fellow practitioners. It was in this state of unity and devotion that the priest prepared to enter the sacred realm of sleep. Group meditation before sleep was seen as a way to purify the mind and spirit, ensuring that the priest's consciousness remained clear and open to divine guidance during the night. The shared focus on spiritual energy helped to clear any distractions or negative thoughts that might have accumulated throughout the day. By meditating together, the priests ensured that they would be spiritually aligned as they rested, allowing the peace and light of the divine to fill their dreams. This practice was not only important for the individual priest, but also for the collective energy of the temple or community. The unity created during group meditation helped to strengthen the temple's spiritual foundation, creating a sacred space where all who participated could experience divine protection and guidance. As the priests entered their rest, they did so with a shared sense of devotion and clarity, knowing that their collective energy had created a spiritually nourishing environment. From the group meditation, the focus naturally shifts to the dreams and visions that would arise during sleep. The powerful collective energy created during meditation was believed to influence the priest's dreams, aligning them with divine wisdom and guidance. In the next chapter, we will explore the sacred nature of dreams in Hinduism, how they were seen as messages from the gods, and how priests used their dreams as a source of spiritual insight and direction. Through this transition from collective meditation to the realm of dreams, we see the seamless connection between wakefulness and sleep, where the divine presence is ever present, guiding the soul through the sacred space of rest. In Hindu spiritual practices, dreams are far more than a product of the subconscious mind. They are believed to be divine messages, gifts from the gods themselves that carry important spiritual guidance. For Hindu priests, dreams were seen as a vital source of information, offering insight into the future, personal karma, or even the state of the soul. As such, the interpretation of dreams was a sacred and serious practice, requiring deep knowledge of sacred texts, symbolic meanings, and spiritual principles. The priest's ability to decode these messages was not just a matter of personal reflection. It was seen as a divine responsibility, a way to guide the community and align their actions with divine will. Priests would often keep detailed records of their dreams, journaling every symbol, figure, and feeling that appeared in their nightly visions. This record-keeping was vital because the gods were believed to speak in symbols, images, sounds, or events that might appear mundane to the untrained eye, but were loaded with spiritual meaning. A dream of a serpent might symbolize wisdom or transformation, while an encounter with a deity could represent a divine message or warning. Priests, trained in the ancient art of dream interpretation, would turn to the sacred texts, the Vedas, Upanishads, and other scriptural writings, where symbols were often explained. These texts contained centuries of accumulated wisdom on how to understand the meaning behind the divine images that appeared during sleep. One of the primary tools used in interpreting dreams was the study of symbols. Each symbol that appeared in a dream had a specific meaning based on its cultural, spiritual, and historical context. For example, dreams involving rivers could indicate spiritual purification, while dreams of fire were often seen as a sign of change or destruction, both necessary elements in the cycle of creation and rebirth. The ability to recognize and understand these symbols was essential for a priest, as it allowed them to decode the deeper layers of divine communication embedded in the dreams. In addition to symbolic interpretation, priests would also look to the timing of the dreams, whether they occurred during specific lunar phases or on particular auspicious days. Dreams that occurred during the full moon, for instance, were believed to carry heightened significance, as the full moon was seen as a time when divine energies were at their peak. The timing of the dream helped to determine its urgency and the type of message it was delivering. If a dream occurred during a period of spiritual practice or meditation, it was often seen as an affirmation of the priest's progress along their path. Conversely, a disturbing or unsettling dream might be interpreted as a sign that the priest needed to address an aspect of their spiritual life that was out of balance or unresolved. Another method of dream interpretation involved meditation. Priests would enter a state of deep contemplation or dhyana in order to gain clarity and insight into their dreams. By quieting the mind and focusing inward, they believed they could access higher realms of consciousness where the gods resided. In this meditative state, priests would reflect on the dream's symbolism, seeking divine guidance to illuminate its meaning. This practice of meditative reflection allowed the priest to bridge the gap between the physical world and the spiritual realms, understanding their dreams not just as mental phenomena, but as divine messages that could lead to personal transformation and insight. The divine messages carried in dreams were not always direct or easily understood. Sometimes, priests would need to consult with a guru or spiritual teacher to gain a deeper understanding of the dreams they had experienced. Gurus, with their advanced spiritual wisdom, were believed to have the ability to decipher the most complex of dreams. They would provide the priest with guidance on how to integrate the dream's message into their spiritual practice. The connection between guru and disciple was key in this process, as the guru's role was not only to teach but also to help the disciple interpret the divine wisdom that came through dreams. As much as dream interpretation was an individual practice, it also had a communal aspect. Priests would often share their dreams with one another, discussing their visions in group settings. These communal discussions allowed for a deeper collective understanding of the messages the gods were sending. The shared wisdom of the priesthood helped to refine interpretations and ensure that the right course of action was taken in response to divine messages. The collective nature of these discussions mirrored the shared spiritual energy created in group rituals and meditation, where each individual's insight added to the overall understanding of divine will. The role of dreams in Hindu spiritual practices highlights the belief that the physical world is only one layer of reality. Sleep, often seen as a temporary escape from the waking world, is in fact a time when the soul is open to divine communication. This understanding aligns with the Hindu belief in the multidimensional nature of existence, where dreams serve as a portal to higher realms of consciousness. It is through dreams that the priest is able to access knowledge beyond the limitations of the body and the material world, gaining insights that guide their spiritual journey. This understanding of dreams as messages from the divine naturally leads to the role of divine beings in influencing sleep. While dreams were often seen as personal messages, they were also understood to be part of a greater cosmic order, where the gods played an active role in guiding the priest's path. The gods themselves were believed to enter the dreams of their devotees, offering counsel, protection, or visions of the future. In the next chapter, we will explore the specific deities and divine entities that influence sleep and dreams in Hinduism, and how their presence shaped the priest's nightly experiences. Through this lens, we will see how the divine continues to play a central role in the sacred practice of sleep, connecting the realms of wakefulness and rest through their divine presence. In Hinduism, the gods are seen as active forces within all aspects of life, including the cycles of sleep. These divine beings, revered for their power and wisdom, were believed to have a direct influence on the quality of sleep and the protection of the soul during the night. For priests, sleep was not a time of mere unconsciousness. It was a sacred period of rejuvenation and spiritual renewal. As such, the gods were called upon to ensure that their rest was protected from disturbances, whether from nightmares, evil spirits, or other negative forces. Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, played a central role in ensuring peaceful and restorative sleep. Known for his ability to maintain balance and harmony in the cosmos, Vishnu was believed to shield the soul during sleep, guarding it from the restless forces that could disrupt a person's peace. It was thought that, by invoking Vishnu's name before sleep, one could invite his protective energy, ensuring that the soul would be kept safe as the body rested. The priest would often chant mantras dedicated to Vishnu, such as the Vishnu Sahasranama, 1,000 names of Vishnu, before sleep, believing that these sacred sounds would invoke divine protection. In this way, sleep became a continuation of the priest's devotion, with the divine being present even in their dreams. Alongside Vishnu, Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation, also had a significant influence on the sleep of priests. Shiva's role in sleep was often viewed as more dynamic, as he was associated with the transformation of negative energies into positive forces. It was believed that Shiva could ward off nightmares or spiritual disturbances by clearing the mind and soul of unwanted influences. Many priests would offer prayers to Shiva before sleep, seeking his ability to remove mental clutter and restore balance within the body and mind. His sleep, in turn, was considered a form of cosmic stillness, allowing the universe to rest between cycles of creation and destruction. By calling on Shiva, the priests sought to align their sleep with this universal rhythm, ensuring that their rest would be peaceful and spiritually fulfilling. In addition to Vishnu and Shiva, Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, also played a role in influencing the quality of sleep. While her influence was more often associated with material well-being, she was also revered for bringing peace and tranquility to the home. In many households, particularly those devoted to temple service, Lakshmi was invoked for restful sleep that would allow the individual to wake up rejuvenated and ready to serve. The belief was that by honoring Lakshmi before sleep, a person could enter a peaceful state of mind, free from anxiety and fear. This allowed the priest to rest deeply, ensuring that their energy was renewed for the spiritual duties ahead. Beyond the protective aspects of sleep, these deities also ensured that the priest's dreams were meaningful and aligned with divine will. Dreams, often considered the domain of the gods, were seen as sacred spaces where spiritual messages could be delivered. Vishnu, Shiva, and Lakshmi were believed to send dreams that would guide the priest on their spiritual path, offering visions of the future, warnings of challenges, or divine wisdom on personal matters. By invoking the gods before sleep, the priest hoped to receive clear, peaceful dreams that would provide them with guidance and inspiration. While the gods' influence on sleep was crucial, the priest also engaged in specific practices to ensure their sleep was spiritually aligned and uninterrupted. As we've seen, the environment in which one sleeps was equally important in Hindu tradition. Priests, knowing the power of their surroundings, took great care to prepare their sleeping spaces to ensure a harmonious connection between the body and the divine. In the next chapter, we will explore these practical practices in greater detail, looking at how priests created the ideal sleeping environment, one that was free from distractions and conducive to spiritual rest. By carefully managing their physical surroundings, priests could maximize the spiritual potential of their sleep, ensuring they remained connected to the divine even while at rest. In Hindu spiritual practice, the preparation for sleep was a deliberate and sacred act, rooted in the belief that the environment in which one rests could greatly influence the quality of sleep and its spiritual benefits. Priests understood that sleep was not just a physical necessity, but a time of spiritual renewal. Therefore, they took great care in creating a sleeping space that was free from any distractions or negative energies, ensuring that the space would be aligned with divine forces. The process of preparing a sacred space for sleep began with the physical surroundings. Priests would carefully select the location for their rest, often choosing a quiet, isolated corner of the temple or a room that was dedicated solely to spiritual practices. The space was cleaned thoroughly, as cleanliness was believed to be essential for maintaining purity and sanctity. Any physical clutter was removed, as it was thought that such distractions could interfere with the priest's ability to rest peacefully and maintain spiritual alignment. Once the space was prepared, the next step was to invoke the presence of the divine through rituals designed to create a sacred atmosphere. Incense played a central role in this process. The priest would light incense sticks, often made from sacred ingredients like sandalwood or jasmine, whose fragrant smoke was believed to purify the air and invite divine blessings. The incense created a calming and uplifting environment, helping to clear the mind of distractions and set the mood for a peaceful and spiritually focused rest. The scent of the incense was seen not just as a pleasant fragrance, but as a medium through which divine energy could flow into the space, ensuring that the priest would sleep under the protection and guidance of the gods. In addition to incense, mantras were often recited as part of the ritual. Before resting, the priest would chant sacred words or phrases, either aloud or silently, invoking divine protection and peace. The mantras were chosen specifically for their vibrational qualities, which were believed to create a resonance that aligned the priest's energy with that of the gods. The act of reciting mantras before sleep was a way to bring the mind into a calm and focused state, preparing it to receive divine messages in the form of dreams. The sound vibrations, as well as the intention behind the chant, were seen as an integral part of the process, ensuring that the space was infused with spiritual energy. The placement of religious symbols also played a significant role in setting the sacred tone of the sleeping space. Priests would often place statues or images of deities such as Vishnu, Shiva, or Lakshmi near their resting area. These symbols were not just ornamental, they were believed to serve as powerful spiritual protectors. The gods were thought to watch over the priest's sleep, guarding them from nightmares and negative influences, while offering their divines guidance and protection. In addition to images of gods, sacred texts such as the Bhagavad Gita or Vedas were sometimes placed near the sleeping area, serving as a spiritual reminder of the divine knowledge the priest sought to embody. The arrangement of these sacred elements within the space was important, as it was believed that their placement could influence the flow of spiritual energy. For example, placing a deity's image facing the sleeping priest was thought to align their energy with that of the divine, creating a direct connection between the priest and the god. The use of sacred symbols, the incense, and the chanting of mantras together created an environment where the priest could rest without fear, knowing that their sleep would be protected by divine forces. Once the space was fully prepared, the priest would then focus on preparing their mind for rest. It was believed that the mind, much like the body, required attention and discipline before entering the sacred space of sleep. In the next chapter, the focus shifts from the physical environment to the mental preparations the priest would make before sleep. Meditation and prayer became essential tools for calming the mind, ensuring that the priest would enter their rest with a clear, focused consciousness, ready to receive the divine insights that might come during sleep. These mental preparations, combined with the sacred rituals of the sleeping space, created an environment where both body and mind could rejuvenate spiritually. As the sacred space for sleep was meticulously prepared, the Hindu priest would then turn inward, focusing on mental preparations to ensure that their mind too was aligned with the divine. In Hinduism, the state of the mind before sleep was believed to have a profound influence on the quality of rest and the experiences that occurred during the night. Sleep was not just about physical relaxation. It was a sacred time for spiritual rejuvenation and communion with the divine. To prepare for this, priests engaged in specific mental exercises designed to calm the mind, elevate their consciousness, and ensure that their sleep would be filled with divine insight rather than worldly distractions. One of the primary practices before sleep was the recitation of mantras. These sacred syllables, words, or phrases carried vibrations that were believed to have a purifying and protective effect on the mind. By repeating mantras, the priest would focus their thoughts on the divine, allowing their consciousness to shift away from the concerns of the material world. This repetition helped to quiet the mind, bringing it into a state of stillness that was necessary for a peaceful and spiritually fulfilling rest. The power of the mantra came not only from its sound, but from its deep spiritual significance, with each mantra acting as a key to unlock higher states of awareness. Mantras such as Om Namah Shivaya or Hare Krishna were common choices, invoking the protection and blessings of gods like Shiva or Vishnu. In addition to mantra recitations, priests also focused their thoughts on divine imagery. Before sleeping, they would mentally visualize their chosen deity, imagining their divine form in vivid detail. Whether it was the serene face of Vishnu reclining on his cosmic serpent or the fierce yet protective gaze of Kali, these images were believed to help the priest connect deeply with the divine. Visualizing the presence of these deities was a form of mental worship that not only prepared the mind for sleep but also invited the divine into the priest's dream state. By focusing on divine images, the priest would ensure that their mind remained centered on spiritual truths, reducing the likelihood of disturbing or restless dreams. The priest would also engage in breathing exercises or pranayama before sleep. This practice involved focusing on the breath, slowing it down and deepening it, which helped to calm the nervous system and center the mind. In the quiet moments before sleep, the priest would inhale deeply, holding their breath for a few moments, and then exhale slowly, releasing tension and clearing the mind of clutter. This controlled breathing was not only beneficial for physical relaxation, but also for mental clarity. By focusing on the breath, the priest could detach from the distractions of the day, creating a mental space for spiritual reflection and connection to the divine. These mental preparations also involved silent prayer or dhyana, which was a form of meditation. Before lying down, the priest would sit for a few moments in stillness, offering a silent prayer to the divine. This prayer might involve gratitude for the day's blessings, an acknowledgement of any challenges, or a request for divine protection during the night. Through this silent prayer, the priest would affirm their trust in the divine and invite spiritual clarity into their sleep. This brief meditation helped to release any lingering stress or negativity, ensuring that the priest's mind was clear and open to receiving divine guidance. Another significant practice before sleep was affirmation. Priests would often affirm their spiritual intentions and focus on positive thoughts before resting. This could involve repeating phrases like, "I am at peace with the divine," or "My mind is aligned with higher consciousness." These affirmations help to create a sense of mental and emotional balance, ensuring that the priest's sleep would be peaceful and spiritually nourishing. By consciously affirming their spiritual alignment before sleep, the priest cultivated an inner sense of peace, preparing themselves for a restful night that would support their spiritual growth. The mental exercises practiced before sleep were designed to guide the priest into a state of deep relaxation and spiritual awareness. In this state, the priest could connect more fully with the divine during their sleep, allowing for spiritual rejuvenation and the possibility of receiving divine messages in their dreams. The intention behind these practices was not simply to achieve a restful sleep, but to use the sleep period as an extension of the priest's spiritual work, where the mind remained focused on the divine, even in the unconscious state. As the priest settled into bed, they would do so with the quiet assurance that their mental and spiritual preparations had aligned them with divine energies, ensuring that the coming hours would be filled with spiritual growth, peace, and insight. The mental exercises before sleep created a bridge between wakefulness and the sacred space of sleep, allowing the priest to enter into a state of rest that was not only physically replenishing but spiritually enriching as well. The connection between mental preparation and spiritual rejuvenation sets the stage for the next chapter, where we will explore the deeper concepts of spiritual renewal during sleep. This chapter will delve into how sleep, seen as a sacred act, serves as a time for the soul to rejuvenate, repair, and reconnect with divine forces, continuing the priest's journey of spiritual growth and enlightenment. In Hinduism, sleep was regarded as far more than just a break from the waking world. It was a sacred act of spiritual rejuvenation. For priests, sleep was an essential part of their daily spiritual practice, providing them with an opportunity not only to rest the body, but to replenish the soul. The idea that sleep was a time for renewal and rebirth was deeply ingrained in Hindu philosophy, with the belief that each night's rest allowed the soul to undergo a process of spiritual rejuvenation, shedding the weight of the day's experiences and reconnecting with divine energies. Sleep was viewed as a time when the soul could temporarily detach from the physical body and journey into the higher realms of existence. Hindu teachings often describe the soul as being in a constant cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, not only in the physical world, but within the spiritual realms as well. In this sense, each night's sleep was a microcosmic reflection of the soul's ongoing journey through cycles of life and spiritual evolution. As the body rested, the soul experienced a form of renewal, shedding its attachments to the material world and realigning with its divine source. This cycle of rejuvenation was essential for maintaining spiritual clarity and progress. For the priest, sleep was not something to be rushed through or treated as an interruption to daily life. It was a sacred time, just as important as meditation or ritual, that allowed them to connect with higher consciousness. During sleep, the priest's mind was believed to be more receptive to divine guidance, and the soul could undergo healing and spiritual growth. It was during this time that the priest's spiritual recharging took place, enabling them to wake up each morning with a renewed sense of clarity, purpose, and devotion. The spiritual rejuvenation through sleep was also tied to the concept of samsara, the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In Hinduism, the soul is seen as eternal, passing through multiple lifetimes and experiences. Each night, as the priest sleeps, the soul undergoes a brief period of rebirth, moving through different states of consciousness and spiritual understanding, just as physical death is seen as a transition from one life to the next. Sleep represented a temporary separation of the soul from the physical body, allowing for a brief moment of spiritual purification and renewal. It was through this cycle that the priest could continue their journey towards spiritual liberation, or moksha, breaking free from the cycle of reincarnation and returning to the divine. The importance of sleep in this process of spiritual renewal is highlighted by the rituals performed before rest. Through the purification practices, mantra recitations, and mental preparation, The priests set the intention that their sleep would be a time for healing and alignment with the divine. These rituals help to ensure that the soul's journey during sleep would be focused on spiritual growth, leaving behind any lingering negative energy or distractions from the waking world. The intention was to ensure that when the priest awoke, they would be spiritually refreshed, ready to continue their sacred duties with a clear and focused mind. Moreover, the act of entering sleep in a state of purity and spiritual alignment allowed the priest to navigate their dreams with clarity. Dreams in Hindu tradition were not just random thoughts or fantasies. They were believed to be windows into the soul's deeper experiences and communications from the divine. As the priest's soul rejuvenated during sleep, it was believed that the dreams they experienced could offer guidance, insights, or warnings, reflecting the state of their spiritual health and progress. For the priest, the connection between sleep and spiritual rejuvenation was not just theoretical but practical. It was a part of their daily routine, a necessary step in maintaining their spiritual well-being. This process of nightly renewal helped the priest remain focused on their divine purpose, avoiding the distractions of the material world and keeping their connection to the God strong and clear. Without this spiritual rejuvenation, the priest's ability to serve the divine and fulfill their duties would be compromised. This idea of sleep as a time for spiritual renewal naturally leads into the next chapter, where we will explore the role of dreams in the priest's spiritual life. The rejuvenating nature of sleep, combined with the deep connection to the divine, often manifested through dreams that were seen as messages from the gods. These dreams were not only reflections of the priest's subconscious, but were considered direct channels of divine communication, offering insights into their spiritual path and life decisions. As we delve deeper into the sacred nature of dreams, we will examine how they influence the decisions and actions of the priests, guiding them in their quest for spiritual enlightenment and understanding. In the rich spiritual tradition of Hinduism, dreams were never viewed as mere subconscious ramblings, but as divine messages that could guide a person's path in life. For Hindu priests, these dreams held immense significance, often offering insight into the next steps in their spiritual journey or even in the material world. Dreams were seen as an extension of the waking world, a sacred space where the gods communicated directly with the soul. Just as prayers, rituals, and meditation were tools for seeking divine guidance, dreams were equally regarded as an avenue for receiving the wisdom and direction of the divine. Priests would analyze their dreams with great care and reverence, seeking to decode the messages embedded within them. They understood that dreams were not random or arbitrary, but contained layers of spiritual meaning. Certain dreams might offer visions of the future, while others could be interpreted as a reflection of the priest's current state of spiritual health. The act of dream interpretation was often a ritual in itself, with priests turning to sacred texts, elders, or even their own intuitive wisdom to understand the symbols and messages that appeared during sleep. A dream involving a particular deity, for example, was seen as a clear indication of divine intervention or guidance. If a priest dreamt of Vishnu, it might be interpreted as a sign that they were on the right spiritual path, or that a new phase of divine favor was about to begin. Similarly, a dream of Shiva might signal a need for personal transformation, indicating that the priest needed to let go of old habits or attachments that were hindering their spiritual progress. These dreams were not to be ignored or dismissed. They were to be pondered deeply, as they often held the answers to questions that the priest might have been seeking in their waking life. But dreams were not just reflections of internal spiritual processes. They were also considered to be deeply influenced by external forces, particularly those of deities and spirits. Hinduism teaches that the physical and spiritual worlds are intertwined, and the boundary between them is often fluid. As such, the gods and spirits were believed to play an active role in shaping the content of dreams. The influence of these divine and supernatural beings in the dream state was seen as a reflection of their power to intervene in the lives of mortals, offering guidance or warnings when necessary. A priest might, for instance, receive a vision of a guardian deity, such as Durga or Lakshmi, warning them of an impending danger. or guiding them toward a new course of action. These dreams were viewed as messages that could not be ignored, as they were direct communications from the divine, offering clarity and direction. In some cases, dreams could be seen as portents, warning the priest of potential obstacles or challenges that might arise in the future, urging them to prepare spiritually or take specific mukhi actions in their waking life. Furthermore, Hinduism acknowledges the presence of spirits, both benevolent and malevolent, that could influence the dream state. These spirits, or preta, could appear in dreams as manifestations of unresolved karma or lingering energies from past lives. The priest would interpret these encounters carefully, understanding that the appearance of a spirit in a dream could signal the need for spiritual intervention or ritual to resolve the karmic issue. In some cases, such dreams might also indicate the need for rituals to pacify restless spirits, ensuring that they did not cause further disruption in the priest's life. The act of dream interpretation, then, was not just an intellectual exercise, but a deeply spiritual one. It required the priest to engage with the mystical forces of the universe, using their knowledge of the divine to unlock the hidden messages of the dream world. It was believed that the more aligned the priest was with divine energies, the clearer and more accurate their dream interpretations would be. For the priest, interpreting dreams was a sacred responsibility, as the decisions made based on these insights could have profound effects on both their personal spiritual journey and their role in the community. Dreams were not only used for individual spiritual guidance, but also played a significant role in guiding the temple's rituals and practices. If a priest had a significant dream about a particular god or event, it might influence the temple's schedule of prayers or rituals. The divine messages received through dreams were integrated into the collective practices of the temple, allowing the entire community to benefit from the spiritual insights imparted through the priest's dream experiences. This connection between dreams and life decisions naturally segues into a deeper exploration of how external forces, such as deities and spirits, actively shape the content of dreams. Moving from the personal interpretation of dreams, the next chapter will delve into the mystical realm of divine influence, examining how these higher powers communicate through the dream state and how priests respond to these messages. The mystical and divine nature of dreams will be explored in greater depth, highlighting the powerful role that the gods, spirits, and cosmic forces play in shaping the priest's spiritual life and guiding their decisions. In the mystical framework of Hinduism, sleep is not simply a natural physiological process, but a vulnerable state where the soul is particularly susceptible to the influence of unseen forces. Both benevolent and malevolent spirits were believed to play a significant role in shaping the sleep experience, with the potential to either protect or disturb the priest during their rest. While sleep offered an opportunity for spiritual rejuvenation, it also carried the risk of negative spiritual interference, as the soul ventured beyond the physical realm into the ether, where spirits resided. Hindu priests were keenly aware of the potential dangers that spirits could pose during sleep, which is why they took extensive precautions to ensure that their sleep was protected. One of the first steps in safeguarding against harmful spirits was invoking divine protection before sleep. Priests would often recite specific mantras or perform small rituals dedicated to invoking the protection of the gods, particularly deities like Vishnu or Shiva, who were seen as powerful protectors. These prayers and invocations were thought to create a spiritual shield around the individual, ensuring that no malevolent spirits could enter their space during sleep. The priest's sleep rituals often involved invoking guardian deities such as Durga or Kali, who were particularly associated with protection from dark forces. Kali, for example, was believed to fiercely protect her devotees from evil, and her powerful energy was said to ward off any harmful entities that might try to interfere with the peaceful rest. The recitation of her mantra, Om Kali Ma, was said to create an aura of invincibility, ensuring that the priest's soul would remain safe and undisturbed as they slept. In addition to invoking the protection of the gods, priests also performed rituals to call upon benevolent spirits, those who were considered guardians or protectors of the temple and the community. These spirits were believed to guide the priest's dreams, offering wisdom and guidance during the night. Priests would place sacred symbols, such as yantras or talismanic objects, near their sleeping area, believed to attract the presence of these positive spirits. These symbols were seen as physical manifestations of divine energy, helping to ensure that the priest's sleep would be filled with spiritual insight and clarity. The use of incense was also a common ritual practice aimed at inviting positive spirits and purifying the air. Fragrances like sandalwood and jasmine were favored for their purifying qualities, creating a peaceful spiritual atmosphere that encouraged the presence of benevolent forces. The aromatic smoke was believed to carry prayers and intentions upward toward the divine realms, where the spirits could hear them and respond with protection and guidance. The act of lighting incense before sleep served both a practical and symbolic purpose. It created a sacred environment conducive to restful, spiritually fulfilling sleep. Despite these precautions, malevolent spirits, referred to as preta or bhoot, were still a very real concern. These spirits were thought to be restless, lingering souls of the deceased who had unresolved karmic issues. They were believed to have the ability to disturb the living, often appearing in dreams or haunting the sleeping mind with nightmarish visions. Priests were trained to recognize the signs of a malevolent spirit's influence, which might manifest as a feeling of heaviness, paralysis, or fear during sleep. If a priest felt disturbed by such a spirit, they would perform specific rituals to appease or banish the entity. These rituals might involve offerings of food or incense, chanting protective mantras, or calling upon deities like Hanuman, who was believed to possess the strength to drive away dark forces. In some cases, priests would also perform spiritual cleansings of their sleeping area. This could involve sweeping the space with a ceremonial broom, burning incense to purify the air, or placing protective symbols at the entrances to the room. These rituals were seen as necessary to maintain a clean and spiritually safe environment where the priest's soul could rest without being disturbed by negative energies. The belief was that harmful spirits could only enter spaces where spiritual cleanliness was lacking, so by maintaining a high level of purity in their surroundings, the priest ensured that the space remained protected. These rituals also extended to the community, particularly in times of spiritual crisis or when individuals were experiencing repeated disturbances during sleep. Priests might perform temple-wide ceremonies designed to purify the temple grounds and invite the protection of the gods. These ceremonies, often held at night, were meant to clear away any lingering malevolent influences and create a sacred, spiritually charged atmosphere for everyone in the community. Through these collective practices, the entire temple or village could align their energy and ensure that all members experienced peaceful, spiritually nourishing sleep. The focus on spirits during sleep reveals the deep interconnection between the physical and spiritual worlds in Hinduism. Sleep was seen not as an isolated event, but as a dynamic interaction between the soul and the divine, influenced by both benevolent and malevolent forces. The rituals performed by priests were meant to create an environment that aligned with the divine order, ensuring that sleep remained a time of spiritual renewal and not a space where dark energies could gain entry. This chapter on the spiritual role of spirits in sleep leads naturally into the next discussion about the rituals performed at the temple to safeguard against spiritual disturbances. These rituals, often performed by priests, were designed to protect the temple and its community from the influence of harmful spirits, ensuring that the temple remained a sacred space where individuals could rest and rejuvenate. In the following chapter, we will explore how these temple-based rituals played an essential role in maintaining spiritual harmony, not only for the priest but for the entire community. In Hindu temples, the protection of sleep was seen as a sacred responsibility, not only for the individual but for the entire community. Every night, before the priests or the faithful would retire for rest, specific rituals were performed to ensure that the divine energies would shield them from negative forces during their sleep. These nightly temple rituals were designed to cleanse the space, ward off malevolent spirits, and invite the presence of benevolent deities to safeguard the community's dreams and rest. The core of these nightly rituals involved the recitation of sacred mantras and prayers, invoking the protection of the gods. Priests would chant the names of deities such as Vishnu, Shiva, or Durga, calling on their divine power to guard the temple and the individuals within it. These mantras were not just words, but powerful vibrations believed to resonate through the temple, purifying the air and creating an energetic shield around the space. The repetition of these prayers set the tone for the night, ensuring that the temple grounds remained free from negative influences and that all those who slept within its walls would do so in peace. A key element in the temple's nightly rituals was the lighting of lamps or candles. Oil lamps were often placed in front of the idols or deities within the temple, their flames symbolizing the divine presence. The light was seen as a form of protection, dispelling darkness and creating a sense of spiritual clarity. The act of lighting these lamps was deeply symbolic, as it represented the illumination of the soul, guiding it away from shadows and towards the divine. The priests would carefully tend to these lamps, ensuring they burned steadily throughout the night, their light shining as a beacon of spiritual protection for the temple and its visitors. In addition to the prayers and the lighting of lamps, priests would also perform ritual offerings before the temple deities, presenting flowers, incense, and other sacred items as acts of devotion. These offerings were made to honor the gods and seek their blessings for peace during the night. Flowers, with their fragrance and beauty, symbolize the purity and grace of the divine. Incense, as mentioned earlier, was believed to purify the space and invite divine energy, while the act of offering itself was a way to express gratitude and reverence. Each of these rituals was performed with the intention of maintaining the sanctity of the space and ensuring that the temple remained a spiritually safe environment for all. The temple rituals also included the practice of chanting sacred texts, such as the Vedas or Upanishads, which were recited to invoke protection and purification. These ancient scriptures, revered as the most sacred texts in Hinduism, contained powerful hymns that were believed to resonate with divine frequencies. The chants of the priests, echoing through the temple's halls, were thought to create a protective aura, ensuring that all who rested within the temple would do so under the watchful eye of the gods. The rhythm of the chanting, coupled with the reverence of the priests, elevated the energy of the space, creating an atmosphere conducive to peaceful sleep. Beyond these physical rituals, there were also spiritual practices designed to protect the temple's inhabitants during their rest. The priests would often perform protective rituals known as puja or homa, in which sacred fire was offered to the deities, and blessings were invoked for the well-being of all. These rituals helped to purify the environment, clearing it of any negative energies that might disturb the peace of the night. The fire used in these ceremonies, with its purifying heat, was seen as a powerful force that could ward off any evil spirits that might try to infiltrate the temple during the night. As the smoke from the offerings rose toward the heavens, it symbolized the release of negative energies, leaving only divine protection in its wake. These nightly temple rituals were a reflection of the belief that sleep was not just a physical necessity, but a sacred practice that required spiritual protection and alignment. The priesthood's responsibility went beyond performing rituals during the day. They were tasked with ensuring the spiritual well-being of the temple at all hours. By performing these rituals before sleep, they ensured that both the space and the people within it were protected from any disturbances that might arise during the night. In this way, the temple's energy remained pure, and the community could rest peacefully, knowing that the gods were watching over them. The focus on the temple's nightly rituals creates a natural segue into the next chapter, where we will shift from the external practices of temple life to explore the deep connection between meditation, sleep, and health. Just as the temple rituals helped to create a sacred space for sleep, meditation was a key practice for aligning the mind and body, ensuring that sleep would be restorative and spiritually nourishing. The connection between meditation and sleep is essential for understanding how Hindu priests maintain their spiritual and physical well-being, making sleep a time not just for rest, but for renewal and growth. In the following chapter, we will dive deeper into the role of meditation in facilitating a peaceful and spiritually enriching sleep. Meditation has long been an integral part of Hindu spiritual practice, not only as a means of attaining enlightenment, but also as a powerful tool for ensuring restful and rejuvenating sleep. For Hindu priests, the physical and spiritual benefits of meditation were deeply interconnected, and the practice was seen as essential for preparing the mind and body for peaceful rest. Unlike modern approaches to sleep, which often focus on external factors like environment and comfort, the Hindu priest's approach emphasized the role of inner stillness and mental clarity. By meditating before sleep, the priest could quiet the mind, release the stress of the day, and enter a state of deep relaxation that aligned both body and spirit for the sacred act of sleep. The specific meditation techniques practiced by priests varied depending on tradition and the individual's spiritual path, but they all shared a common goal: to calm the mind and bring awareness into the present moment. One of the primary techniques involved focused breathing or pranayama, which was used to regulate the breath and calm the nervous system. The priest would focus on their inhale and exhale, breathing deeply and slowly, allowing the rhythm of their breath to bring a sense of peace and tranquility to their body. This practice was not only beneficial for preparing the body to rest, but also for calming the mind, making it receptive to spiritual insights during sleep. Another key meditation technique used by Hindu priests before sleep was mindfulness or dhyana, which focused on maintaining awareness of the present moment. The priest would sit in stillness, observing the flow of their thoughts without judgment or attachment. This meditation practice helped to clear the mind of distractions and mental clutter, allowing the priest to let go of the day's worries and fully embrace the sacredness of sleep. By cultivating mindfulness, the priest could enter a state of mental and emotional balance, making it easier to fall into a restful sleep that was both physically restorative and spiritually enriching. In addition to these techniques, visualization was also an important part of meditation before sleep. The priest might mentally visualize the presence of a deity, such as Vishnu, Shiva, or Lakshmi, and focus on the divine qualities that the deity embodied. By visualizing the deity's form, the priest could invite their energy and protection into their sleep, ensuring that their rest was filled with spiritual guidance and renewal. This practice helped to create a deep connection with the divine, even as the priest's body rested. Visualization was not just a way to induce relaxation, but also a method of aligning the mind with divine energies, allowing the priest to receive spiritual insights through their dreams. The physical benefits of these meditation practices were just as important as the spiritual ones. Meditation has long been known to reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and promote overall physical well-being. For the Hindu priest, these benefits were crucial for maintaining the stamina and focus required for their demanding spiritual duties. By practicing meditation before sleep, the priest ensured that their body would be relaxed and at ease, ready to enter a state of deep rest that would restore both their physical and spiritual energy. The regular practice of meditation helped the priest to cultivate a sense of balance and peace, preventing the body and mind from becoming overwhelmed by the stresses of daily life. Furthermore, the combination of meditation and sleep had a profound impact on the priest's spiritual health. In Hinduism, sleep was seen not just as a time for physical rejuvenation, but as a sacred opportunity for spiritual renewal. Meditation before sleep allowed the priest to enter a state of heightened awareness, making it easier for them to receive divine guidance and wisdom during their rest. It was believed that during sleep, the soul could travel to higher realms, where it could gain insight into the nature of the universe and its connection to the divine. Meditation served as a bridge between the waking world and the dream state, preparing the priest's mind to be receptive to these spiritual experiences. The practice of meditation before sleep was not only a personal endeavor, but also an integral part of temple rituals. In many temples, priests would meditate together before the night's rituals, cultivating a collective sense of peace and unity. This group meditation created a powerful spiritual atmosphere, which was believed to enhance the quality of sleep for all who participated. The energy generated during these group sessions was thought to ripple out into the temple, ensuring that the entire space remained spiritually charged and conducive to restful sleep. This deep connection between meditation, sleep, and spiritual health naturally leads us to explore the historical aspect of these practices. The meditation techniques and sleep rituals practiced by Hindu priests were not just developed in isolation, they were passed down through generations, forming a rich tradition of spiritual knowledge. In the next chapter, we will explore how these practices have evolved over time, how they were shared across generations, and how they continue to influence spiritual practices today. The transmission of these ancient teachings offers insight into how meditation and sleep were viewed as integral parts of the priest's path to spiritual enlightenment and the preservation of divine energy across the ages. The practices surrounding sleep, meditation, and spiritual rejuvenation were not merely individual endeavors, they were sacred traditions passed down through generations of Hindu priests. For centuries, these practices were carefully nurtured within priestly families, where the wisdom of the ancients was preserved, taught, and adapted to the needs of each new generation. Hinduism, with its emphasis on the continuity of spiritual knowledge, viewed the transmission of these traditions as essential to maintaining the purity and strength of the priesthood. The rituals and disciplines related to sleep were no exception. These sacred practices were not only about individual enlightenment, but about sustaining the spiritual vitality of the community, linking each generation to the divine wisdom of the past. In priestly families, the practices surrounding sleep were taught from an early age, often as part of a broader spiritual education that included meditation, mantra recitation, and ritual preparation. Young priests would learn the importance of maintaining purity in their sleep practices, understanding how deeply their nightly rest was connected to their spiritual responsibilities. They were taught how to create sacred sleeping spaces, how to prepare their minds and bodies for rest, and how to interpret dreams as divine messages. These teachings were often passed down orally, through personal instruction from parent to child, or from master to disciple, ensuring that the traditions remained alive and vibrant. The transmission of these practices was not limited to words alone. It was also a deeply experiential process. Young priests were required to participate in the rituals, learning by doing. They would observe their elders, mimicking their actions and absorbing the spiritual intent behind every prayer, every chant, and every offering made before sleep. This hands-on approach ensured that the next generation of priests would not only understand the technical aspects of sleep rituals, but also embody the spiritual discipline necessary to perform them with sincerity and devotion. As these practices evolved over time, they adapted to the changing needs of the community and the world around them. While the core principles of sleep rituals, purification, protection, and spiritual alignment remained unchanged, certain aspects of the practice were adapted to reflect new challenges or to incorporate modern understandings of health and well-being. For example, as temples grew in size and number, the scale of nightly rituals expanded to accommodate the growing needs of larger communities. The incorporation of new meditation techniques, the refinement of purification practices, and the blending of traditional methods with more contemporary approaches all reflected the adaptability of these ancient teachings. Despite these adaptations, the essence of the practices remained constant. The sacred nature of sleep was never diminished, and the role of the priest as a protector of both the spiritual and physical well-being of the community remained central. This continuity from generation to generation ensured that the sleep practices of Hindu priests remained a powerful force for spiritual renewal, not only for the priesthood, but for all who sought their guidance. The role of the guru, or spiritual teacher, was critical in the preservation and evolution of these practices. Gurus acted as custodians of ancient knowledge, guiding their disciples through the intricate rituals and mental preparations required for spiritually aligned sleep. In many ways, the transmission of these teachings mirrored the cycle of spiritual rebirth that was central to Hindu philosophy. Each new generation of priests was seen as a continuation of the spiritual lineage, with their actions and practices ensuring the ongoing flow of divine wisdom. As with any tradition, The practices surrounding sleep in the priesthood were not immune to external influences. Over time, these practices absorbed elements from different regions, cultures, and philosophical schools. The priesthood, while deeply rooted in tradition, was not static. The incorporation of new methods of meditation, physical postures, and mental techniques allowed these practices to remain relevant and effective in a changing world. Yet, despite these changes, the underlying principles, the sacred nature of sleep, the role of the priest in spiritual protection, and the need for spiritual rejuvenation remained firmly intact. This generational transmission of sleep rituals and spiritual practices naturally leads to a discussion of how these ancient traditions continue to influence modern Hindu sleep practices today. In the next chapter, we will explore how these rituals, while adapted to contemporary lifestyles, still carry the essence of the original teachings. Despite the changes in society and the world at large, the core principles of spiritual rest and rejuvenation are very much alive, and they continue to guide the practices of both priests and lay people in the modern world. The ongoing connection between past and present, between the wisdom of the ancestors and the needs of the current generation, ensures that the spiritual importance of sleep remains a cornerstone of Hindu life. While many of the ancient sleep practices rooted in Hindu spiritual traditions may have faded or evolved over time, the influence of these rituals can still be seen today, particularly among modern Hindu priests. Despite the challenges posed by modernization and the demands of contemporary life, many of the core principles of the ancient sleep practices have been preserved, subtly integrated into the daily routines of today's spiritual leaders. This continuity between the ancient and the modern is a testament to the enduring power of these rituals, which have transcended time, adapting to the needs of the present while retaining their spiritual essence. In today's Hindu temples, priests continue to invoke the same practices of purification, protection, and spiritual alignment before sleep. The basic rituals, such as the lighting of incense, chanting mantras, and offering prayers, remain central to their preparations for rest. Though the specific rituals may have adapted to accommodate modern schedules and spaces, the underlying purpose remains unchanged: to create a sacred environment that allows the priest to connect with the divine during sleep, ensuring that their rest is spiritually enriching and peaceful. Modern Hindu priests also continue to employ pranayama, the practice of breath control, as a method of calming the mind and body before sleep. In an age where stress and mental distractions are more prevalent than ever, the importance of controlling one's breath has become increasingly recognized for its health benefits. Pranayama, with its emphasis on slow, controlled breathing, serves not only as a way to promote physical relaxation, but also as a way to quiet the mind, preparing it for rest and spiritual reflection. This practice, deeply rooted in the ancient tradition, remains a cornerstone of meditation and sleep preparation for today's priests. Despite the demands of modern life, many priests still prioritize the importance of mental clarity before sleep. The practice of dhyana or meditation is now more important than ever, as priests seek to disconnect from the distractions of technology and daily responsibilities. By meditating before sleep, they continue to cultivate the inner stillness necessary to receive divine messages during the night. This ancient practice helps modern priests remain grounded and spiritually connected, ensuring that their sleep remains a time for rejuvenation rather than distraction. The idea of preparing the mind for sleep, just as the body is prepared with ritual, is still alive and well in contemporary practice. While much has changed, some of the most important elements of the ancient sleep rituals have been preserved in a modern context. The practice of invoking the gods before rest, whether through chanting specific mantras or visualizing the presence of deities, remains a powerful method for creating a spiritually safe and peaceful sleep. Vishnu, Shiva, and other deities continue to be revered as protectors during the night, ensuring that the soul remains shielded from disturbances while resting. The daily life of a modern priest, though busier and more complex, still reflects the same devotion to maintaining a connection with the divine during sleep, emphasizing the importance of inner peace, spiritual clarity, and protection from negative influences. Yet, modern Hinduism is not without its challenges. The pace of life in the 21st century often leads to a detachment from these ancient practices. Temples have become busier, and the life of the priest has become more public-facing, with responsibilities stretching beyond the walls of the sacred space. The rise of technology and the global reach of social media has created new distractions, which can easily interfere with the meditative practices that once provided spiritual clarity. In response to these modern pressures, many contemporary priests are finding ways to adapt these ancient practices to the demands of modern life, often through short, focused rituals that can be incorporated into busy schedules. Whether through the use of mobile apps that offer meditation or quick prayer sessions before bed, modern technology has provided priests with new tools to maintain their connection to the ancient rituals that have sustained them for generations. The modern influences on ancient sleep practices highlight a broader trend in which the foundational aspects of Hindu spiritual life continue to influence contemporary practices. From meditation and mantra chanting to rituals invoking divine protection, these timeless practices remain deeply embedded in the lives of priests, offering a sense of continuity and spiritual grounding. Despite the changes in society, the heart of the ancient teachings remains, providing a framework that modern priests can adapt to meet the challenges of today's world. As we look at how these ancient practices continue to shape modern spiritual lives, we can turn to a broader discussion about the relevance of ancient spiritual practices in the modern world. The preservation of these practices, even as they evolve to fit contemporary life, speaks to the enduring power of Hindu rituals. The next chapter will explore this concept in greater depth, examining how these age-old traditions continue to influence not only Hindu priests but lay practitioners as well. The connection between ancient practices and their modern-day adaptations offers a powerful example of how spiritual practices can evolve while maintaining their original essence. Hindu sleep practices, with their deep spiritual roots and focus on purification, protection, and divine alignment, continue to have a profound influence on modern spiritual life, especially in regions where Hinduism is practiced. While the world has dramatically changed over the centuries, the core principles of sleep discipline in Hinduism, such as meditation, mantra recitation, and purification rituals, remain deeply relevant today. These practices offer a timeless connection between the physical and spiritual realms, helping individuals navigate the complexities of modern life while maintaining a sense of inner peace, clarity, and spiritual well-being. In contemporary Hindu practice, the principles surrounding sleep are not confined to priests alone. They have spread into the lives of lay practitioners, both in India and around the world. Many Hindus continue to view sleep as a sacred act, one that requires mental and spiritual preparation. As the demands of modern life grow, ranging from the stress of work and family responsibilities to the distractions of technology, many are turning to ancient sleep practices as a means of restoring balance and peace. The idea of preparing the mind before sleep through meditation, breathwork, and mantra recitation is as relevant now as it ever was, offering a sanctuary of stillness amidst the noise of modern life. In urban centers, where fast-paced lifestyles dominate, meditation practices have been adapted to accommodate busy schedules. Many practitioners now engage in short, focused meditation sessions before sleep, whether at home or at temples. This practice allows individuals to enter a state of relaxation and spiritual connection, even in the midst of a hectic day. These quick yet meaningful rituals, often including prayers, the lighting of incense, and mantra recitation, ensure that the divine presence remains a part of their nightly routine. These adaptations reflect the ongoing relevance of the ancient teachings, showing that the spiritual connection to sleep can be sustained, no matter the pace or complexity of modern living. Another key element of modern Hindu sleep practices is the continuation of purification rituals, especially in places of worship and homes. The use of incense, the recitation of protective mantras, and the placement of sacred objects near the sleeping area are still common practices. These rituals are not merely seen as protective measures, They are integral to maintaining spiritual harmony and purity in everyday life. By invoking the presence of divine energy before sleep, practitioners ensure that their dreams are free from disturbance and filled with clarity, wisdom, and guidance from the gods. In addition to these individual practices, there is also a resurgence of interest in the sattvic lifestyle, which emphasizes purity and balance in all aspects of life, including diet and rest. The concept of sattvic food, which promotes clarity and peace of mind, is particularly tied to sleep practices. In modern Hindu homes, there is often a conscious effort to incorporate sattvic food into the daily diet, as it is believed to aid in maintaining a peaceful and harmonious state conducive to restful sleep. This commitment to diet and sleep discipline highlights the holistic nature of Hindu practices, where physical health and spiritual well-being are intricately connected. Yoga and pranayama, breathing exercises, which have seen a global resurgence in recent decades, also play a significant role in modern Hindu sleep practices. Many people, particularly in Western countries, have adopted these ancient techniques as part of their nightly routine. Practicing yoga before sleep helps to release physical tension, while pranayama helps calm the nervous system and prepare the mind for rest. The emphasis on deep, conscious breathing before sleep aligns with the age-old Hindu teachings that advocate for controlling the breath to achieve mental and spiritual clarity. In a world where sleep disturbances are becoming increasingly common, these ancient techniques offer a natural remedy for promoting a peaceful, uninterrupted rest. The reverence for sleep as a spiritual practice in modern Hinduism is not limited to specific regions, but has also spread across the globe, particularly in communities where the teachings of Hinduism have taken root. As more people discover the benefits of meditation, mindfulness, and spiritual disciplines, the principles of sleep as practiced in Hinduism are gaining recognition and respect. The increasing awareness of sleep's role in overall well-being, combined with a growing interest in Eastern spiritual practices, has allowed Hindu sleep rituals to find new relevance, not only in traditional communities but also in modern secular contexts. The emphasis on the sacredness of sleep in Hinduism has also influenced broader spiritual movements. Many contemporary spiritual teachers, drawing on the wisdom of Hindu philosophy, advocate for the integration of rest and spiritual practice. They encourage individuals to embrace the stillness of sleep as a time for spiritual renewal, using it as an opportunity to connect with the divine and gain clarity for the challenges ahead. In this way, the teachings of Hindu sleep practices continue to have a far-reaching impact, helping people navigate the complexities of modern life with a deeper sense of inner peace. The ongoing relevance of these practices highlights the adaptability and resilience of Hindu spirituality. While the world around us changes, the core teachings of Hinduism continue to offer a timeless framework for personal growth, spiritual connection, and well-being. As we transition from the modern influence of Hindu sleep practices, we will explore how these ancient rituals, beliefs, and practices continue to shape global spiritual movements. The universal nature of these teachings, which transcend cultural and geographical boundaries, showcases the global spiritual influence of Hinduism today. In the next chapter, we will examine how the practices of Hindu sleep rituals are now influencing spiritual communities across the world, linking the ancient wisdom of the East to the modern spiritual landscape. Hinduism's influence on spiritual practices related to sleep extends far beyond the borders of India, making its mark on cultures and spiritual traditions around the world. As Hinduism spread through the diaspora, and as more people became drawn to its teachings, many aspects of its spiritual practices, particularly those related to sleep and meditation, began to be embraced by individuals and communities across the globe. Today, elements of Hindu sleep practices can be found not only in India, but in Western cultures, Southeast Asia, and beyond, as the spiritual wisdom of Hinduism continues to shape modern approaches to health, well-being, and spiritual rejuvenation. One of the most notable areas of influence has been in the field of meditation, particularly yoga and pranayama. As these practices gained widespread popularity in the 20th and 21st centuries, they brought with them not only physical benefits, but a deeper spiritual connection to rest and sleep. Yoga, originally rooted in Hinduism, has now become a mainstream practice in many countries around the world. People of all walks of life, regardless of religious background, now incorporate yoga and breathing techniques into their nightly routines to promote relaxation and ensure a peaceful sleep. The practice of pranayama, specifically designed to control and regulate the breath, is now commonly used by people globally to calm their minds before sleep, reducing stress and helping to create a state of inner peace conducive to restful rest. This global embrace of meditation and yoga reflects a broader appreciation for the sattvic lifestyle promoted in Hinduism, which encourages individuals to live in balance and harmony with their environment. The teachings of purity in thought, diet, and sleep resonate deeply with modern people who are increasingly seeking natural, holistic approaches to health. The idea of sleep as a sacred time for spiritual renewal, rather than simply a bodily necessity, has influenced various wellness practices around the world, particularly in mindfulness-based approaches that have become popular in the West. These practices, rooted in the principles of Hindu spiritual life, encourage people to treat sleep as a form of rejuvenation, not only for the body but for the soul. In Southeast Asia, Hinduism's influence on sleep practices is also evident, particularly in countries like Indonesia and Bali, where Hindu rituals are still an integral part of everyday life. The concept of sacred rest, as promoted in Hindu traditions, is intertwined with local beliefs in Bali and other regions, where the spiritual importance of sleep is emphasized through various rituals and meditative practices. Here, sleep is seen as a bridge between the material and spiritual worlds, a time when the soul is refreshed and the mind cleansed of earthly distractions. Local practices often mirror those of Hindu temples, with offerings, prayers, and meditative practices preparing individuals for restful sleep. In the West, Hindu sleep practices have influenced modern wellness culture, where sleep is increasingly seen as essential not just for physical health, but for mental and spiritual clarity. Practices like guided meditation, which often incorporate elements of Hindu prayer or mantra chanting, are now used by millions as a tool for achieving better sleep. Apps and online resources, drawing on Hindu meditation techniques, offer guided sleep sessions designed to calm the mind, reduce anxiety, and promote restful sleep. These modern adaptations have made ancient practices accessible to a global audience, seamlessly blending them into contemporary lifestyles. The influence of Hindu sleep practices also extends to the broader field of spirituality and personal development. In contemporary spiritual communities, particularly those focusing on holistic well-being, there is a growing recognition of the connection between mental clarity, emotional balance, and restful sleep. Concepts like mindfulness and sleep hygiene, which emphasize the need for mental and physical preparation for sleep, draw heavily from Hindu spiritual principles. The idea that sleep is a sacred act, connected to spiritual growth and rejuvenation, is increasingly embraced by individuals seeking deeper meaning in their lives. As people around the world turn to meditation and mindfulness for stress relief, they are unknowingly drawing from the centuries-old traditions of Hinduism that have long understood the profound impact of sleep on spiritual well-being. Moreover, Hindu rituals involving dreams and divine messages have also influenced practices in shamanism and other spiritual traditions worldwide. The belief that dreams carry wisdom and guidance from divine sources has found its way into cultures as diverse as Native American spirituality, Western mysticism, and South American shamanic practices. These traditions, much like Hinduism, regard sleep and dreams as a gateway to higher consciousness, where individuals can access spiritual truths or receive messages from deities and ancestors. While the specific practices differ, the underlying understanding that sleep is a sacred space for transformation and growth is a concept shared across cultures, influenced by the deep spiritual teachings of Hinduism. As these practices spread across the world, they have taken on new forms. But the core principles of Hindu sleep rituals, such as creating a spiritually pure environment, invoking divine protection, and using meditation to prepare for rest continue to shape the way modern spiritual seekers approach sleep. What began as sacred practices for Hindu priests in ancient temples has evolved into a global spiritual movement, where individuals from various backgrounds integrate these teachings into their lives to promote better health, deeper sleep, and a stronger spiritual connection. The global influence of Hindu sleep practices naturally leads to a broader discussion of how these ancient traditions continue to evolve. As Hinduism itself adapts to the demands of modern life, its teachings on sleep, rest, and spiritual rejuvenation are also undergoing transformation. The next chapter will explore how these practices continue to evolve within Hinduism, focusing on the spiritual evolution of sleep practices and their role in the ongoing development of Hindu spiritual life in the modern world. As Hinduism has evolved over centuries, so too have its practices surrounding sleep. What began as ancient rituals rooted in the belief that sleep was a time for divine connection and spiritual rejuvenation has adapted to meet the changing needs of society, religious beliefs, and cultural contexts. These transformations reflect the dynamic nature of Hinduism, a religion that has always been deeply attuned to the evolving spiritual and societal landscape. The practice of sleep, once viewed purely as a sacred ritual for priests, has expanded to encompass the broader spiritual community, influencing how Hindus today approach rest, self-care, and spiritual growth. In the earliest days of Hinduism, sleep practices were closely tied to asceticism, with priests and spiritual aspirants undergoing rigorous physical and mental discipline to prepare for their sacred rest. The connection between the physical and spiritual realms was clear. Sleep was not just for rest, but a time when the soul could detach from the body, travel to higher realms, and connect with the divine. Ancient sleep rituals, including purification before rest, mantra recitation, and invoking divine protection, were designed to ensure that sleep would be a spiritually enriching experience. Priests would often sleep on hard surfaces, use meditation to clear their minds, and engage in deep prayer to prepare their souls for a night of spiritual rejuvenation. As Hinduism spread throughout India and beyond, sleep practices began to evolve, influenced by cultural exchanges, social changes, and the growth of temples and communities. While the core principles of purity, divine connection, and protection remained, the practices themselves began to be adapted to the needs of a growing population. The emphasis on personal meditation and purification rituals became more widespread, and sleep rituals expanded beyond the priestly class to include the general population. In temples, the use of sacred sounds, such as chanting mantras or ringing bells, became part of the evening rituals, helping to prepare everyone in the temple for a peaceful, spiritually aligned rest. These practices ensured that the community, as a whole, would benefit from the divine energies present during the night. The advent of bhakti, devotion, movements in the medieval period also influenced the evolution of sleep practices. As devotion to personal deities grew in prominence, sleep rituals began to incorporate more personalized aspects. Devotees would call on their chosen deity, whether Vishnu, Shiva, or Lakshmi, for protection and blessings during sleep. Offerings, incense, and prayers became more individualized, with worshippers focusing their devotion on cultivating a personal relationship with the divine before sleep. These practices reinforced the idea that sleep was not just a biological necessity, but an intimate spiritual experience, a time for personal connection with the divine that could influence both the Vanhit, waking and dreaming worlds. In modern Hinduism, sleep practices continue to evolve in response to the pressures and challenges of contemporary life. Urbanization, technological advancements, and the fast-paced nature of modern society have altered the way people approach sleep. Despite these changes, many of the traditional practices remain central to spiritual life. Meditation, mantra recitation, and prayer before sleep continue to be an essential part of the Hindu spiritual tradition, although they are now often practiced in shorter, more practical formats to fit into the busy lives of modern practitioners. For example, many Hindus now incorporate brief meditation sessions or quick mantra recitations into their evening routines, often using apps or guided sessions to create a peaceful space for rest. Additionally, the rise of mindfulness and wellness movements in the modern era has brought Hindu sleep practices into global spiritual consciousness. The principles of meditation, breathing techniques, and the connection between mind and body that are central to Hindu sleep rituals have gained widespread popularity in the West. Practices like Yoga Nidra, yogic sleep, which combines deep relaxation with meditative awareness, have become mainstream methods for promoting restful and spiritually aligned sleep. These modern interpretations of ancient practices have helped people around the world recognize the deep spiritual value of sleep, not only for physical rest but for spiritual renewal and personal growth. The spiritual evolution of Hindu sleep practices also reflects a broader trend within the religion to integrate traditional spiritual teachings with modern scientific understanding of health and well-being. Hinduism has always maintained a holistic approach to life, seeing no separation between the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of existence. In the modern era, this holistic view has led to an increased focus on the impact of sleep on overall health. While sleep practices were once primarily concerned with spiritual purification and divine connection, they are now also seen as a way to promote physical and mental well-being. The principles of sleep hygiene, which encourage a clean and tranquil sleeping environment, align closely with traditional Hindu practices of creating a spiritually safe and purified space for rest. As the practice of sleep continues to evolve in modern Hinduism, it remains deeply connected to its spiritual roots. While contemporary adaptations have made these practices more accessible to a global audience, the underlying spiritual intent remains unchanged. Sleep continues to be viewed as a sacred time for renewal, offering a space where the soul can rest, reconnect with the divine, and prepare for the challenges of the waking world. The evolution of sleep practices in Hinduism demonstrates the religion's ability to adapt while preserving its core spiritual principles. This spiritual evolution of sleep practices naturally leads us to a broader discussion on the physical and mental health benefits of sleep, which are increasingly being recognized in modern times. In the next chapter, we will explore how the ancient practices surrounding sleep in Hinduism contribute not only to spiritual growth but also to overall health and well-being, highlighting the timeless connection between rest, rejuvenation, and vitality. In Hindu philosophy, sleep is not viewed merely as a physical necessity but as a crucial component of holistic health, a state of balance where the body, mind, and spirit are aligned in harmony. Sleep in this context is considered a foundational pillar that supports overall well-being, offering not only physical rest but spiritual rejuvenation. The relationship between sleep and health in Hinduism extends far beyond the idea of rest for the body. It is integral to maintaining the balance of the doshas in Ayurveda, the ancient system of medicine, and ensuring that the practices of yoga and meditation achieve their full potential. In this way, sleep is seen as a key to achieving true vitality, spiritual clarity, and long-term health. Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system of medicine, places a profound emphasis on sleep as part of its holistic approach to health. According to Ayurvedic principles, sleep is essential for restoring balance to the body's energies, or doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Each dosha governs specific functions within the body, and when these energies are out of balance, physical and mental health are compromised. Sleep, in Ayurvedic terms, helps to rejuvenate the doshas, ensuring that they are in equilibrium. Good quality sleep nourishes the body's tissues, rejuvenates the mind, and supports the function of the immune system, all of which are necessary for maintaining optimal health. Ayurveda also recognizes the importance of the time of day when one sleeps. The tradition teaches that the ideal time for rest is during the night, aligning with the natural rhythms of the body and the environment. The hours of sleep before midnight, particularly from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., are seen as the most beneficial, as this is when the body is most capable of deep rest and detoxification. Sleeping at these optimal times helps to regulate the body's circadian rhythms, which are believed to align with the natural cycles of the sun, promoting better digestion, immune function, and overall vitality. The concept of sleep hygiene is also a significant aspect of Ayurvedic health. It teaches that the environment in which one sleeps should be calm, clean, and free from distractions. A restful environment, free from the influences of noise, light, and electronic devices, is essential for promoting deep and restorative sleep. Ayurveda emphasizes that the use of calming herbs such as lavender, sandalwood, or ashwagandha can help soothe the nervous system and prepare the mind for sleep. These practices align with the traditional Hindu view that sleep is a sacred time and the environment should be prepared as one would prepare for a spiritual ritual. Similarly, yoga, the ancient spiritual discipline for harmonizing the body, mind, and spirit, also aligns with the importance of sleep in maintaining holistic health. Yoga encourages mindfulness and physical postures, asanas, that support relaxation and balance. Specific yoga practices are recommended to prepare the body for restful sleep, such as restorative yoga or yin yoga, which involve gentle calming movements that help relieve stress and promote physical relaxation. The goal of these practices is to release tension and prepare the body to enter a peaceful, restful state. The practice of pranayama, or controlled breathing, is another technique deeply connected to improving sleep in Hindu philosophy. The regulation of breath is said to calm the mind and reduce stress, two essential components for achieving restful and spiritually nourishing sleep. Deep mindful breathing before sleep activates the parasympathetic nervous system, inducing a state of relaxation and signaling to the body that it is time for rest. In Ayurveda, this practice is known to balance the doshas by calming excess vata, which can cause anxiety or restlessness, reducing pitta, which may lead to insomnia or disturbed sleep, and ensuring kapha is properly maintained for restorative sleep cycles. Moreover, sleep in Hinduism is viewed as an opportunity for spiritual healing. The night, traditionally considered a time of reflection and inner quiet, allows the soul to rejuvenate. In a deeply holistic sense, sleep in Hindu thought helps individuals reconnect with their higher consciousness, facilitating spiritual growth. By approaching sleep with mindfulness, preparing the body, mind, and environment, the practitioner can ensure that sleep is not only physically restorative but also spiritually enriching. Sleep is thus seen as a period during which the body repairs itself, the mind clears away distractions, and the spirit connects with the divine. This connection between sleep, holistic health, and spiritual well-being in Hinduism offers a valuable framework for modern practitioners. In today's fast-paced, stress-filled world, the principles of Ayurveda, yoga, and meditation can provide practical tools for restoring balance and promoting restful sleep. The timeless wisdom of these traditions teaches us that sleep is not a luxury or an afterthought, but a vital part of maintaining our health and spiritual vitality. As we move from the broader connection between sleep and health in Hinduism, the next chapter shifts to offer practical tips for modern practitioners. With the foundation of understanding how sleep fits into the holistic health model, the following chapter will focus on actionable steps that anyone, whether rooted in Hinduism or simply seeking a more balanced lifestyle, can take to enhance their sleep quality and ultimately their overall well-being. The ancient sleep practices of Hinduism, with their emphasis on spiritual purification, divine protection, and mindfulness, offer timeless wisdom for modern practitioners seeking better rest and overall well-being. While the world has changed dramatically since these practices were first established, many aspects of Hindu sleep rituals remain deeply relevant today. Modern followers of Hinduism, particularly those committed to maintaining a balanced, spiritually connected life, still incorporate these time-honored practices into their daily routines. By doing so, they ensure that their sleep becomes a sacred, restorative experience that nurtures the body, mind, and spirit. To incorporate these practices into daily life, one must start by creating a sacred sleep environment. Just as the ancient priests would purify their sleeping spaces, modern practitioners can prepare their sleeping area to promote tranquility and spiritual alignment. This begins with ensuring the space is clean, calm, and free from distractions. To create an environment conducive to restful sleep, one might incorporate elements like incense, essential oils, or crystals. Fragrances such as sandalwood or lavender are particularly effective at calming the nervous system and purifying the air, making them ideal for evening rituals. Burning incense or using essential oils can set the tone for peaceful sleep and align the energy of the space with divine intentions. Additionally, incorporating sacred symbols into the sleeping space can provide protection and spiritual guidance. Placing an image or statue of a revered deity, such as Vishnu or Lakshmi, near the bed can invoke divine presence and safeguard against negative energies during the night. These symbols act as reminders of one's spiritual connection to the divine, offering comfort and reassurance before sleep. Another practice that can be easily adapted into modern life is the recitation of mantras. Before going to bed, chanting simple, powerful mantras can calm the mind and bring peace to the spirit. Mantras such as Om Namah Shivaya or Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha invite divine protection and abundance, helping the practitioner to release the stress and anxieties of the day. Even a few minutes of chanting before bed can help quiet the mind and prepare it for rest, allowing the practitioner to enter sleep with a sense of divine alignment and peace. For those who seek to deepen their spiritual practice before sleep, engaging in pranayama, breathing exercises, can be highly beneficial. Pranayama techniques such as Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, or Brahmari, humming bee breath, are designed to balance the nervous system and bring the mind into a state of calm. These practices help to clear mental clutter, reduce anxiety, and promote a deeper sense of relaxation, ideal for preparing the body for restful sleep. These techniques are simple to incorporate into an evening routine and require only a few minutes to be effective. Additionally, the practice of mindfulness meditation before sleep can help bring awareness to the present moment, allowing the practitioner to let go of lingering thoughts and stress. By sitting in stillness and focusing on the breath, one can cultivate a peaceful, centered state of mind that is conducive to sleep. This meditation practice can be enhanced by visualizing divine energy or imagining oneself surrounded by a protective light, a technique often used in Hindu sleep rituals to ensure restful and spiritually aligned sleep. Another powerful practice is the visualization of divine forms before sleep. Many Hindu practitioners visualize deities such as Vishnu or Shiva while preparing for bed, seeing them in their mind's eye as protectors and guides. This practice not only aligns the individual with the divine, but can help promote a sense of security and spiritual connection during the night. Visualizing the presence of a deity before sleep helps reinforce the idea that sleep is not just a physical activity, but a sacred time when the soul can receive divine protection and guidance. In addition to these practices, sleep hygiene, an increasingly recognized concept in modern health practices, aligns with the ancient Hindu tradition of preparing the body and mind for rest. Going to bed at regular times, avoiding excessive screen time before sleep, and creating a quiet, dark environment are all important aspects of both modern and traditional practices for improving sleep quality. These practices help regulate the body's natural rhythms and prepare it for the deep, restorative rest necessary for physical and spiritual health. Finally, it's important to understand that the practice of sleep in Hinduism is closely linked to overall well-being. Sleep is seen not just as a time of rest, but as an opportunity for spiritual renewal. Integrating these practices into daily life encourages a holistic approach to health that considers the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of well-being. By honoring the sacredness of sleep, individuals can maintain a deeper connection to their divine purpose and align their daily lives with spiritual principles. These practices, though simple, can have a profound impact on the quality of sleep and overall spiritual health. By incorporating elements of Hindu sleep rituals into one's nightly routine, modern practitioners can experience greater peace, protection, and spiritual growth. making sleep a time of both rest and rejuvenation. This practical guide to incorporating Hindu sleep rituals into modern life naturally leads to a broader reflection on the lasting impact of these ancient practices. The wisdom passed down through generations continues to influence contemporary spiritual life, not only in Hindu communities but across the world. As we reflect on the ongoing relevance of these teachings, it becomes clear that the principles of spiritual rejuvenation through sleep are as vital today as they were in ancient times. In the next chapter, we will explore the lasting influence of these practices on global spiritual traditions and how they continue to evolve and shape modern spiritual life. As we reach the final chapter of this exploration into the sacred sleep practices of Hindu priests, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the uniqueness and depth of these practices. From the ancient rituals of purification and protection to the meditation techniques designed to align the body, mind, and soul before rest, Hindu sleep practices offer a profound spiritual approach to what is often considered a simple biological function. The principles of creating a sacred space for sleep, invoking divine protection, and preparing the mind for spiritual renewal remind us that sleep is not just a passive act, but a time for deep spiritual engagement and rejuvenation. One of the most striking aspects of Hindu sleep practices is their emphasis on holistic well-being. These practices are not limited to physical rest, but extend to mental and spiritual realms, recognizing that sleep is an integral part of the larger process of maintaining balance and health in life. By preparing the body, mind, and environment for rest, Hindu priests align themselves with divine energy, ensuring that sleep becomes an opportunity for spiritual growth, divine connection, and renewal. This holistic view of sleep as a sacred experience offers an important lesson for those seeking greater peace and spiritual clarity in today's fast-paced, often stressful world. Hinduism's approach to sleep, with its deep spiritual roots, offers modern practitioners valuable tools for improving their own sleep and overall well-being. Practices such as meditation, mantra recitation, pranayama, and the creation of a sacred sleep environment are as relevant today as they were in ancient times. These rituals help individuals create a peaceful, spiritually aligned space for rest, ensuring that the body is rejuvenated, the mind is cleared of distractions, and the spirit is connected to the divine. In an age where sleep disturbances are becoming more common, the wisdom of these ancient practices offers a profound antidote to the pressures of modern life. However, Hindu sleep practices are not just limited to those seeking a deeper spiritual connection. They are a reminder of the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit, an interconnectedness that modern wellness movements have begun to recognize. Practices that focus on mindfulness, meditation, and breathwork are now embraced by people from all backgrounds, acknowledging that our physical and spiritual health are inextricably linked. Hinduism's emphasis on sleep as a time for both physical rest and spiritual rejuvenation can serve as an important reminder for all of us to approach sleep with mindfulness and reverence. In considering how these practices might be integrated into our own lives, it's important to reflect on the core principles that underlie these rituals. The practice of mental preparation before sleep, whether through mantra chanting, breath control, or visualization, helps us quiet the mind and clear away the distractions that keep us from truly resting. The purification rituals, whether physical or spiritual, remind us that true rest requires a clean, sacred space, both externally in our surroundings and internally in our minds. And the invocation of divine protection encourages us to see sleep not just as a time of escape, but as a time of sacred communion, where we can connect with the divine for guidance, peace, and renewal. Perhaps the most profound lesson we can take from these practices is the recognition of sleep as a spiritual act. In Hinduism, sleep is seen as a bridge between the waking world and the spiritual realm, a time when the soul is free to renew itself and reconnect with the divine. In this light, sleep becomes much more than a physical need. It becomes a time for deep spiritual renewal, offering an opportunity for self-reflection, healing, and growth. By integrating aspects of these practices into our own lives, we can transform our approach to sleep, making it a time for both rest and spiritual fulfillment. As we conclude this journey into the unusual and deeply meaningful sleep practices of Hindu priests, we are reminded of the enduring wisdom these traditions offer. The sacred rituals, the mental and physical preparations, and the deep reverence for sleep as a spiritual experience serve as a guide for all who seek peace, clarity, and divine connection. Whether you are a lifelong practitioner of Hinduism or someone new to these teachings, the principles explored in this book offer valuable insights into how we can approach sleep with mindfulness, intention, and reverence. In closing, I invite you to consider how these ancient practices might enhance your own spiritual life and well-being. By integrating practices such as meditation, prayer, breathwork, and the creation of sacred spaces for rest, you can cultivate a deeper connection to the divine and find greater peace and balance in your life. Hinduism's unique approach to sleep offers a timeless path to spiritual growth, one that continues to resonate with modern practitioners and spiritual seekers around the world. As we continue to navigate the complexities of contemporary life, these practices offer a profound reminder of the sacredness of rest and the power of sleep as a time for spiritual renewal and divine connection.